Yes.
Everybody ready? Everybody ready?
No. No.
Everybody's ready? Good evening. I now call to order the regular the meeting of the Board of the Indianapolis Marion County Library Board of Trustees. Our absence of Ms. Gilbert, our counsel, Russell Brown, will assist us with roll call tonight. Mr. Brown, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Biederman,
Present.
Dr. Palacio,
Present.
Dr. Payne,
Present.
Dr. Murtada,
Present.
Dr. White.
Present.
Sorry, Mr. Lane, I skipped you.
Present.
Ms. Tribble,
Present.
all members are present.
All members are present. The chair recognizes a quorum. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Indianapolis Board of Trustees for the library. We're looking forward to a productive meeting as we continue to advance the mission, the values and goals of the Indianapolis Public Library. First, I want to thank the Warren Branch for opening this beautiful facility to us and for hosting our meeting tonight. We will hear from the Warren's branch manager in a few moments prior to our board business. I want to start tonight by celebrating the successful opening of our newest branch a little bit more than a week ago. On August 19th, the Fort Bend branch opened its doors officially to patrons. It was a beautiful day filled with music, fun, and eager new patrons of all ages. We also hosted many civic and community leaders who enjoyed our lovely new 22,000 square foot facility filled with more than 50,000 books. Here are a few more stats that reflect the success of opening day at the Fort Bend branch. The new branch was featured in 14 stories in the local news media. Within the first hour, we welcomed 1,013 patrons through the doors. That was just the first hour. In total, Fort Bend had 3,568 books and other materials checked out on day one. That's a lot, right? That's more than twice as many materials checked out on the same day by our second busiest location. And perhaps most importantly, we registered 182 new patrons with brand new library cards. That's some nice stats. The Fort Bend branch was years in the making. The land was purchased for $1 in 2020. We broke ground in April of 2022. Our collections staff spent a solid 3 months this spring ordering brand new books. The library staff started organizing on site July 5th to prepare for the first shipment of the collection that arrived on July 25th. And staff and volunteers spent the last few weeks prior to the grand opening shelving the collection. And we even had a speech on the day of by a member of the Fort Bend Reuse Authority who talked about how far back it went. And it was actually around my high school graduation year, which I will not mention but several decades ago. On behalf of the board, I want to thank the many individuals who worked very hard behind the scenes. And a special thank you to branch manager Shelby Peak for a grand opening that exceeded expectations. Congratulations. Congratulations. Let's just give a thank you. One of the other acknowledgements that we want to make about Fort Bend is that it has City County Councilor Ally Brown was pivotal in securing funding to make Fort Bend a certified autistic library, the first in the state. Thanks to support from the Indie Autism Project and Easter Steels, every Fort Bend library staff member received training provided by the International Board of Credentialing and with continuing education standards. So with this accreditation, library staff has learned what our autistic patrons need when visiting the library and how we can best serve these individuals and their families with respect and care. It's a wonderful example of adaptability and inclusiveness, two of the important qualities among IPL's values. Moving on, last month I mentioned that the board is beginning the process of a formal and legal review of the Board of Trustees bylaws, code of ethics, and other governance documents. This comprehensive review being done in conjunction with council and the CEO has now begun. And I want to thank all trustees for your attention and engagement in this process. This activity is another way that the board is being responsive to the advancement of the recommendations that were made as a result of the climate study. Thank you for your kind attention to my opening remarks. I'd now like to introduce Ms. Connie Scott, the Warren Branch Manager, and thank her for hosting tonight's meeting. I'll turn the floor over for her branch meeting.
Good evening,
Hi.
President Tribble, esteemed board members, and esteemed guests and staff. Welcome to Warren Branch. My name is Connie Scott, and it is a delight to be before you to report on what Warren Library has done. The Warren Library opened in 1974. In fact, we are prepared to celebrate our 50th golden anniversary next year. So we're excited about that. To give you some background, and I'm reading from our profile, racially, we are 53.2% African American, 39.1 Caucasian, 5.3 Hispanic, and 1.3 Asian. And according to a 2021 census tract study, we have the top 5 immigrant populations come from Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, Haiti, and Nigeria in that order. And their numbers are increasing. During the 2021-22 year, there was some significant changes to staffing. There were interim branch managers, and in addition to a part-time computer assistant. Popular services are the computer and copier use. Many of our community are dependent on technology services to conduct vital civil, legal, and educational business. We host a lively monthly book discussion. We're actively involved in the community. I've only been here for about 4.5 months, and I've met with the cafe here in the Far East Side. Linda and I, who was our circulation manager too, we attend the IMPD East Region Task Force meeting, which is monthly. I also have attended different events in the community, the Haitian National Day and different other areas. I've gone to Moorhead Community Center, and we work with Warren Township Public Schools. And just recently, we were able to meet with Dr. Tim Hansen to talk about the services that we can provide to a community. He's really interested in improving the literacy in this area. Also, we welcome Fort Bend in this area. You know, that was a great, people were looking forward to having that library built, but we're also looking at working collaboratively with them along with the organizations that are here in the Far East area. As you know, we have quite a few students coming from Warren, and we are working on strategies to improve the communication. We just met with the principal, the vice principal, the deans, and the security to talk about what's ahead for this school year. And we plan to meet with them either the end of this year or the beginning of January. I've also, as I said, met with Dr. Tim Hansen. We've also had people coming in for our community tables. WIC comes in once a month to help with our community. We also have Eskenazi Health that comes here. We also have the Goodwill Nurses Outreach. I did not know, but they have a program that they meet with young mothers and they provide a nurse with them if they qualify. So they're here. So we're just delighted that a Warren branch is still a community center for this area. As I've gone to different organizations and meetings, many people come up, as I say, I'm from Warren. They said, I went there as a child. And we are just so happy to have their children and grandchildren come in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
You, Ms. Scott. Are there any comments or questions from board members?
This may be a dumb question, but you mentioned Tim Hansen's name twice.
Oh, he is the superintendent of Warren Township Schools, Township Schools.
I
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
That's wonderful that you all have
Mhm.
connection. Good.
Just full disclosure, Connie used to be my supervisor, and so it's really great to see you leading the ship over here.
Would you say some more about how you're interacting with the teens in this area? You were talking earlier about teen programs. What kinds of programs are you supporting for the young people?
Well, we're looking and we have the children's staff has introduced me to some of the agencies and groups that work with teenagers. There are so many out in this area. And one such group came and presented a program on character development and leadership. We have at least 75 to 80 students here from 2:30 to about 4:30, 4:45 in this library.
Daily.
Daily. And what I've done since I've been here, and this has always been a tradition at Warren, is to make this a very comfortable customer service place. So my staff greets them. We also try to connect before we confront. I talked with some of them. I found out who are the tennis players, what some of the courses they're taking, what they want to be. So my staff and I are very engaged with them. Now, we do have some issues with some of the behavior, but once again, we've set up along with Warren Central High, along with the principal and the deans, that they sign in when they come in. So we know some of them by name, and now we track their grade level. So when they have their grade level there, if something arises, we report to them so they can go to their specific dean. We're looking at more programs that we can just align with because the youth are here and we need to engage them. So we're working on quite a few programs and reaching out to different agencies, whether it's in the Far East or within the city of Indianapolis.
I love that phrase, connect before we confront. Connect before we confront, build that relationship. It's a powerful model for the library. Thank you so much, Connie.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Scott. Thanks again for having us, and thank you for the report.
Thank you. Thank you.
We appreciate Ms. Scott and all of the librarians and staff members who serve this community and who are welcoming and hosting our meeting today. Also, last month, at the request of our board members, we started to feature a report from an NDPL support service unit in addition to the branch report. So this allows the board to get more of an inside perspective on many aspects of our large operations. Last month, it was shipping and receiving, and tonight we will hear from IT's Mr. Jeff Edminster, Manager of Data and Web Services, and he'll share an overview of his area. Welcome, Mr. Edminster.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me here. So I'm going to give you an overview. My team is made up of myself and 4 others. We're all have quite a bit of longevity at the library. Between the 5 of us, we're not too far from 100 years of service. But we try to keep our skills fresh and our approaches fresh. We have a number of areas of focus. We are the team that maintains and administrates Polaris, which is the software that kind of runs the library for circulation, for materials acquisition and cataloging. We also do integrations with the ILS, which include our web app that's for credit card payments, the self-checks, our online registration and renewal programs. My group also does data and reporting. We produce operational reports that streamline and make many of our workflows more efficient and less labor intensive. We provide data for the metrics and the dashboards that allow our library administration to make database choices for the library. We do things like the people counting, circulation activity. You've probably seen a lot of the dashboards that we produce. We provide the data for that. We try to put definitions around it and give it meaning so that people understand the data and just aren't kind of parroting numbers. We are involved in the library card campaign that tries to put the library cards in the hands of all the students in our township schools. We work with the circulation leader in the library, Cordia, and get her the data and produce the cards and get everything ready so that she can put packages together and distribute them to the schools. Another one of our major efforts is we provide technical support and administration for the public-facing catalog BiblioCore. So we directly touch our external customers that way. We also work with a lot of other public-facing information sources and delivery solutions like the databases, Gale and EBSCO, things that people use every day, like the Consumer Reports database and some of the genealogy resources. We provide a service there by talking to those companies' technicians when we need to step in, if we need to go that deeply into a solution. We also work with companies like Communico and Patron Point. Communico is the calendar and reservation system we use. Patron Point is the solution we use for communicating with patrons and staff, newsletters, email blasts or last minute closings or changes. We provide technical support for frameworks and infrastructures and support all technical aspects of our web presences. So our main website, our blog site, the weshare.ndpl.org, which is our partner, the schools, and they have their own website that we support. Digital Indy, the Encyclopedia of Indianapolis, our internal intranet, and we have other internally developed patron-facing solutions like the Purchase Request app, where our customers can go if they can't find something in our collection, but want to request that we carry it at the library. Some of our current projects right now, we're working with IUPUI to update some of the underlying technologies in the Encyclopedia of Indianapolis. We want to make those more current that will allow us to have a stronger platform so that we're able to address some accessibility issues with the encyclopedia. We are migrating our current internet to SharePoint. So that's going to be a long and exciting process. Our internal departments are excited about that. At least that's what I'm hearing. We are in the planning and testing stages for the most recent upgrade to Polaris, which will happen in October. We do those twice a year. It requires putting together a testing team every cycle and upgrading our test environment so that we can look and make sure that the software changes aren't going to affect our own environment in any negative ways. And my team is also part of a larger team that's exploring a solution for our digital asset management, which is the tens of thousands of photographs and video and some sound pieces that are currently being organized in a directory structure that's cumbersome and makes it difficult to find stuff and distribute when we need to in a timely fashion. So hopefully within the next few months, we're going to have just made a decision there and begin implementing. So that's kind of an overview of what we do. Love to hear any questions or.
That's a lot of work for 5 people.
It is, but we all love what we're doing. We're just super interested in making the customers' lives easier and better. It's kind of what it's our core service idea.
I have a question. What do you use for the dashboard? What software?
Well, we're currently using Excel.
Okay,
That was something that Garrett had put in place. We have been exploring other options, but that's kind of been put on pause while that position is unfilled. So once that's filled, we may start looking. We're looking at strongly at Tableau
okay.
with that search.
And I just have one other question. Curious, are these board meetings, the recordings of these board meetings, are they considered digital asset?
They may be. Currently they live in their own space that's backed up and but it could be that they will reside here too. The solutions we're looking at definitely have the capacity for that. It could be something that would give us an ability to maintain them for a longer period.
Any other questions?
Hi. Thank you. I was wondering about, you said things are backed up and all that. What servers do you use for keeping all that data?
That's actually another area in IT, but I can tell you that we're using a cloud service right now. We were tape forever. Which is, it's cumbersome, but tape is very reliable. We've moved to a cloud in the last year and a half or so. I'm sorry.
Shanika.
2 years, and is that Amazon? Yeah, we're using the Amazon platform.
The AWS.
Well, also, when I was special collections librarian, we would get a DVD copy from Randy with the library board meeting. But I remember that they also live on the city government website too, so there are archival copies there.
Mhm.
And going back to that, my experience in special collections, I remember seeing a video of you and former communications director John Barnes in the late '90s when the first iteration of our library website came out. And I remember,
99.
yes, and I remember John asked you if people could reserve books from that website, and you said not yet, but it's coming. And now that you can stream movies, you can do all kinds of historical research through the website, it just really shows your commitment and your skill set, which is really
Well,
impressive.
the technologies are just amazing how quickly they have moved in that time. I would have never thought back then that our website and our ability to deliver services would be what they are today.
You mentioned Encyclopedia of Indianapolis and accessibility issues.
Yes.
Can you say some more about what the thinking is about?
Well, when the encyclopedia began being built, first of all, it didn't have, it had a custom platform. When it was decided it was going to be brought over to NDPL, we talked about finding a platform that was more universal, and we decided on WordPress. When IUPUI started the process of moving it over, there were two editor options. One was an older, what's now called the classic editor, and then there's a newer block editor that's been being used for 4 or 5 years. And the block editor facilitates an easier implementation of responsive sites, which means they size to devices. We have a few other issues with images and stuff that readers don't work well consistently, and we're trying to address all that. Accessibility has become a big focus of our web presence, as it should be. So we're trying to get the technologies across our web presence in a condition that we can provide accessible service to everyone on all of our sites. And the encyclopedia is just one of those, actually.
Tied to visual impaired individuals as well?
Yes, we're being very cognizant now of contrast issues, scalability with fonts, the ability for readers to enter the site and do a smooth job delivering the content.
So helpful. Thank you.
Other question. A lot of techno talk.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. It's kind of hard
No,
to,
Actually, it's
hard to
awesome.
talk technology sometimes
I
without.
think you did a great job of sharing with us in a very accessible way. And I think our board members have some knowledge and interest in it. And so we appreciate you coming to share with us and to give that additional information and helping us to continue learn things that are going on behind the book stack.
Well, thank you.
Thank
I'm always an email away. if you
All
need
right,
anything.
remember you said that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. And normally Ms. Angie Gilbert would do that. She is not available this evening, and so I will preside over that. We welcome feedback from the public about our Indianapolis Public Libraries. And this is the time when the public may address the library board. If there are several individuals representing the same group, we ask that you select a spokesperson. And we also ask that you Do not repeat the same comments that have been offered by someone who speaks before you. Please note also that this public comment time is not the appropriate comment forum for commenting on matters related to employee charges, employee complaints, or alleged employee misconduct. Those matters and any such matters as that should be brought to the attention of the library's CEO or the Human Resources Department to ensure that the matters can be properly addressed in compliance with established library policies and procedures. There will be a 5-minute time limit for each speaker. And we ask that each speaker identify yourself when you come forward by name. And if you are representing an organization, what that organization is.
We don't have the clock tonight, so I'll give it 1 minute.
Okay. So Mr. Brown is going to be, as usual, our timekeeper. You will get a 1-minute warning if you talk that long, but you will have up to 5 minutes, okay? So our first speaker is Amira Malcolm.
Good evening.
Oops, comment just now invalidated a lot of my notes. I'm going to abridge what I've written for today's meeting. Good evening. My name is Amira Malcolm. As of right now, I'm the multimedia project manager of the Center for Black Literature and Culture at Central Library. I've been in this position for 2 years and 8 months, and I was initially hired for a fellowship of 2 years exactly. Briefly, I was notified about 2 weeks ago that that there was an intent to petition the board to end my position at the library starting at the end of this week. So my goal is to reflect a bit on my time at the library and to share some hopes for the next fellow that comes into this position after me. The idea of communication was one that really came up a lot in this process, and one that wasn't upheld as one would expect in a position that is meant to enrich, and one that is meant to assist people that are going into a fellowship position, especially those who are entering into the MLIS track, which for those who are not familiar is the Masters of Library Information Science. I have brought this up to the CEO before. He's aware of my concerns, and I will be happy to forward my full notes to him and the board after this meeting. But I suppose the goal of my statement today is to ask the board to at least delay their decision until the end of the calendar year, or at least until this next meeting on September 25th, in order to allow more time to fully assess that situation. But I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm.
Can we? Mayor,
Yes. I'm so sorry. I didn't have to answer.
is there any reason that you can think of why we would be petitioned to end your position?
Not to my immediate knowledge, accepting what was cited in the letter that was given to me as the term of my fellowship being 2 years, and that having been exceeded with the addition of the time that I spent as the interim manager of the CDLC.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. Next is Michael Torres. Good evening, Mr. Torres.
Good evening, board, trustees. My name is Michael Torres. I'm president of ASME Local 3395, representing Indianapolis Public Library workers. And tonight I'm here to recognize a recent retiree who was also a member. Her name is Sherry Utterback. She was with us for 24 years and 2 months. She retired about 2 weeks ago. And she started shortly after I did. And we come up together in the library for many, many years. And unfortunately, Sherry had some medical issues that kind of forced her to retire. I don't think she really wanted to. I know she really wanted to meet that 25-year threshold, but she decided to retire. And the reason I'm speaking tonight, just to recognize her as well, is that we had a nice conversation, a spirited conversation about her exit interview and the process that happens when employees leave. I believe it's an optional to have an exit interview to do online or phone, or however they do it. But I think that information, I don't know how it gets filtered out to, or if it goes beyond management or anything. If any of you board members have an opportunity to see any of that feedback, because that was part of our climate improvements sources of questions about exit interviews and staff leaving with comments and feedback and everything, and where that lies or where that goes or what happens with that. So I want to encourage our staff, our leadership to, if possible, share those comments with the leadership as you are. And maybe we can make some headway with some of the comments and some of the feedbacks. We can make this place better and make some changes that some of those feedback count for. So that's my comment. Something we can do with those exit interviews and share them and learn from them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. Our next speaker is Hannah Allison.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hello, Ms. Allison, welcome.
I would like to make a comment about the Center for Black Literature and Culture and how important they have been to my friend Amira Malcolm. I have known Amira for almost 10 years. She was one of my first friends when I came to Indy. And for the past 3 years, she has devoted her time and a lot of hard work towards the Center for Black Literature and Culture. And I was disappointed to hear that she will no longer be in that position. And I would ask that the board also reconsider that decision. If you go to the CBLC website, most, if not all of the content that's on there is the work of Amira Malcolm. Not only is she passionate about Black literature and culture, but she's just a great person, and it would be very sad for the library to experience that loss. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ms. Allison. That concludes our public comment section. We will move forward to the next agenda item, which is approval of minutes. We'll start with the executive session. We have executive session, regular and special meeting minutes. First, we'll be looking at the executive session from July 24th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session held on July 24th, 2023?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
These minutes have been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call to approve the minutes.
Mr. Biederman. Approve. Mr. Lane. Approve. Dr. Murtada.
Approved.
Dr. Palacio. Approve. Dr. Payne. Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Dr. White.
Approve.
It's unanimous. The motion carries. We'll now move to the regular meeting for July 24th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held July 24th, 2023?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. The minutes have been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll now have a roll call to approve the minutes.
Mr. Biederman. Approve. Mr. Lane. Approve. Dr. Murtada.
Approved.
Dr. Palacio. Approve. Dr. Payne.
Approved.
Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Dr. White. Approve.
Motion carries. Thank you. We'll now move forward to committee reports, and we will start with the Finance Committee. which is chaired by Dr. Payne and members Dr. Palacio and Dr. White.
Ms. Lolita Campbell is our Chief Financial Officer. Please come up, accompanied by Mary Rankin, who is our Treasurer.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening,
Good
everyone.
evening.
This month y'all had quite a few.
Yes, we did. Last month we had a lot. I hope to keep this a little short. I did my best. We'll see.
We're happy. to-
Good evening, everyone. Today, Mary and I will present July 2023 Treasury Report. I will review the revenue and Mary will review the expenditures.
Have a clicker?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you. Sorry. Oops. Sorry if it doesn't look too clear. I don't know if it's the lighting. But the operating fund for the revenue, we receive 60% of our property taxes of our budget, and this is normal. If you look on page 32, which is our cash flow statement, you'll see that we receive most of our property taxes in the second quarter of the calendar year, and we receive the remaining the fourth quarter of the calendar year. The intergovernmental revenue we receive 54% of that, which is 2% lower. However, our budget is slightly lower than 2022, so it appears to be 2% lower. Our charges for services, public printing revenue is consistent month to month, and we receive catering revenue in the month of July as well. And that gave us 61% of our revenue. And miscellaneous interest, our revenue continues to grow month to month. The year-to-date amount is $663,298. And again, Hoosier Fund and Trust Indiana Fund continues to increase every month. This month, Hoosier Fund is 5.10% interest and Trust Indiana is 5.14% interest. So for the actually month to date is $126,349 for this month. So that is great for the month of July. And you can find the investment report on page, I think it's 36 of the board packet, if you'd like to review that. On this second slide is another way that we compare our month-to-date revenue. You'll see the bar graph for the revenue month-to-date and also the year-to-date bar graph. Does anyone have any questions in regards to the revenue before Mary review the expenditures? Okay. On the expenditures, this is the operating fund and month to date and year to date as a percent of budget. As a percent of budget, we're 2% less on personal services and benefits than we would have been last year. The personal service budget is higher than last year, as there was an expectation of filling more jobs with higher wages. Supplies are 7% higher than this time last year due to the increase in costs for office and facilities cleaning supplies. Other services and charges are also up 9% over this time last year for legal, cleaning services, maintaining computers and subscription renewals. And capital outlay is 1% lower than this time last year. Overall, it's 48% of the budget has been spent as of the end of July. And then we also have a bar graph for that. Click through to the which compares year to date over last year's and as well as month to date. So you can see that personal services and benefits are higher than last year, but as a percent of budget, they're lower, which we don't show here, but that's the confusion there and how we're wording that, but are there any questions on those?
When you say that there are 9% increase in the legal, cleaning, services, maintenance, you're combining all of those together when you say it's 9% increase?
Yes, that's for the whole category.
And that's disaggregated where?
The number 4.3, you want to go back a slide?
Under where it says personal services, supplies, other services and charges,
Yeah, the other services and charges.
that number 43 line.
Yes,
And so when you bring them all together, that's the 9% increase.
as a percent of budget. So last year as a percent of budget, it would have been 40, and now it's 49. Am I portraying that accurately?
Yes, and you can also find the detail of these numbers on page 30 of your board document. Under other services and charges. And that's the detail.
Could you explain, also on page 30, the difference between original budget and revised budget?
Yes, the original budget was as passed. And then we're allowed to increase the budget by any purchase order encumbrances that are outstanding at December 31. Then as those change, that will change, as well as approved resolutions to modify the budget categories.
So the revised is like the money that's either been moved to a different bucket or.
Yeah, it is
Like-
where it is right as of July 31st.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And we did close some of those purchase orders. So we had our approved budget was like 55 million, and then we had 2 million in outstanding encumbrances. And last month we closed about 500,000 of that because it was needed.
Thank
Are there any other questions?
Yes, that's the end of the treasury report.
Is there a motion to accept the report of the treasurer for July 2023 for filing for audit?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will now have a roll call to accept the report of the treasurer.
Mr. Biederman. Approved. Mr. Lane.
Approved.
Dr. Matata.
Approved.
Dr. Palacio. Approved. Dr. Payne.
Approved.
Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Dr. White.
Approved.
The motion carries.
Thank you. We also have resolution.
Absolutely. Please proceed.
We also have two resolutions, resolution 54-2023. I'm trying to do two things at once, trying to get used to it. This resolution is for the appropriations and tax rates. The library board is required under Indiana Code 36-3-6-9B to submit on adopted budget and tax levies to the council clerk by August the 31st. On August the 3rd and the 10th, the library published notice of the public hearing for August the 15th and adoption of the 2024 budget for August the 28th in the Indianapolis Star and the court and commercial records.
this resolution is for the operating fund and bond number 2 fund, rainy day fund, and LIRF, Library Improvement Reserve Fund, effective January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024. This slide would also reflect on your the second column of the total amount of the budget, which is 82,900,000, which also reflects the tax adopted tax rate of 0.0382. On this slide here, it shows the overall summary of the 2024 budget compared to the 2023 budget. There is a slight increase, approximately 4% increase. It's 82.9 million from this current year, 73.1 million. Some of the revenue assumptions is that the DLGF released the growth quotient of 4% for the 2024. So we assume that the levy would grow by this percentage. Then also we projected that the intergovernmental revenue will stay flat in this total, and also let the local income tax, the budget assumes that COED will grow 4.5%. And the levy freeze will stay flat. Charges for services, the budget assumes these fees will also stay flat. And other revenue, this will include printing, faxing, events, cafe revenue. This will continue to grow as it has done in 2023. The expenditures for character one, which is the personnel services, some of the assumptions are that we will try to aim to give a salary increase for 2024 4%. There is 27 pays rather than 26 pays in 2024. The health insurance also increased by 7.5%. And of course, we have the FICA and a PERF. Character two is supplies. This continues to increase. So we increased it approximately 17.1% for supplies. Oop. Character three is other services and charges. This continues to increase. We increased it by 5.42%. This is for the legal service billing. Hopefully that will go back to what it was in the past. And then we also increased professional development conferences for our staff and costs associated with design, development, and testing of the new website, and utilities and maintenance costs continue to increase as well. The capital outlays, we increased it by 4.8%, and books and material budget increases 5% for from the 2023. This slide covers our bond and interest redemption fund. The last three bonds, the 2023 A, B, and C, you'll see that it's located on this slide. We put a draft of this amount. We don't know the exact amount it would be for 2024. So this is approximate amount that we're budgeting for. Then LIRF is 250,000 and rainy day fund is 1 million. This passed through our finance committee and we're asking for the board to approve.
So this is a motion, we have a favorable recommendation from the Finance Committee to approve Resolution 54, 2023 regarding resolution for appropriations and tax rates. Is there a second to this favorable recommendation?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I just have a discussion just for public information. On the other revenues, the assumption is that the budget will grow by 135% over 2023. What was that assumption based on?
Other revenues, oh, this is for the interest that we're earning on our investments. Because of
Yeah.
that growth,
Because of the higher yield there.
yes. And if you look at our current treasury report at the on the cash flow, you'll see, not the cash flow, but the investment report, you'll see that growth.
Mhm. It's substantial, and it almost begs the question of how is our investment counseling projecting what we're generating compared to what we could be generating if we had some other types of action taken. And then my question would be, aren't we somewhat controlled by city council about what we can do with that interest mechanism?
Yes.
I think, I'm just saying this so the public will know that we're not autonomous, that we are somewhat dependent to city council for matters like,
Yes.
okay.
We actually will go to a investment meeting with them, I think in October.
But basically they drive that. They basically.
Highly
kinda drive
encouraged.
the-
Well, it's also state law restriction
Mhm.
to provide for safety of our
Taxes.
investments and funds.
That's one way to look at it. The other way is they don't trust you to make those decisions. They want to make sure big brother's watching you.
Yeah, well, we're not in the stock market, but
I know.
we do
Right.
have the Hoosier Fund,
And
which
Trust
is
Indiana.
produced by the state and
Yes.
for local governments.
They're
And they're doing
yielding,
pretty
they're
good.
yielding substantially. I mean,
Yes.
it's- can't complain at all. I wish I had that kind of yield, but I just want the public to be aware that we are not autonomous in making decisions pertaining to interest generation.
I saw that the tuition assistance budget is pretty much doubling, which I think is great. Would that mean that folks who are in school and working for NDPL, they can get their tuition paid for upfront, or is that is it a reimbursement?
Well, this is for 2024 budget, and Tisha has a new policy. I'm not for sure.
That's
if
right.
been
It's actually.
revised, and she will cover that.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call to approve resolution 54, 2023.
Mr. Biederman, approve. Mr. Lane,
Approve.
Dr. Murtada,
Approved.
Dr. Palacio, approve. Dr. Payne, Ms. Tribble,
Approved.
Dr. White.
Approved.
The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to resolution 55, 2023.
Yes, my last resolution. I like to invite Deb. You want the resolution?
Good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay, very good. So I'm bringing resolution 55, 2023 regarding our annual EBSCO magazine renewal. We purchased 902 magazine subscriptions from EBSCO for all of our 25, now 26 locations. And we use EBSCO as a jobber to help us manage that number. We still have a few direct subscriptions that we have to deal with on the side, like the Indianapolis Star and things like that. But this allows us to manage all of our subscriptions through a business to business portal. And it means that they all come due at once. And this is for 2024 subscriptions. And when we get those in, that means that they can continue receiving those subscriptions. We do allow the branches to look at their subscriptions every year and decide if they want to drop or add new titles. We also like to make sure that we're trying to reflect the community of each of our branches and the demographics. the future of magazines, print, physical is rapidly declining and more is going online. So every year this budget or this purchase goes down every year. So I'm asking for an approval for the renewal of this subscription service.
So move.
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Just a quick question. How is this tied to the digital asset management we heard about earlier? Is there any connection at all?
Not related.
Not related.
Even our electronic magazines don't live in their digital asset system. It's hosted remotely by another service.
So, quick question, is this, where Ranger Rick comes from?
Yes, it is. The physical copy of Ranger Rick. Yes.
Well, we just returned two of them today. My daughter loves Ranger Rick, so.
Very
I'm
good.
supportive.
That alone.
Yeah, that'll do.
And I do want to warn you, I'm coming back in a couple of months for the electronic version of this.
Any other questions besides Ranger Rick? Any other favorite magazines that we want to check on? Okay, hearing none, we will go to the roll call for resolution 55, 2023.
Mr. Biederman.
Approved.
Mr. Lane. Approved. Dr. Murtada.
Approved.
Dr. Palacio. Approved. Dr. Payne.
Approved.
Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Dr. White.
Approve.
The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And then lastly, our audit is complete and we plan to report back to the board committee regards to the audit. It was good, so. And that's it.
I want to take a moment here, a breath, and you all may be taking a breath too.
Not yet.
Right, well, like a halftime,
Yeah.
maybe it's halftime, it's a college football game. To thank Ms. Campbell, Ms. Riggs, and the whole Rankin, I'm sorry. Mary Riggs is somebody, I apologize, Mary, for your work with the budget, with the audit. It's been a busy several months and as you say, you're not quite, resting because you've got the whole process to go through with the council. But thank you very much for the hard work that you've done to date. Thank you for presenting it in a way that helps us to understand it and to continue to be clear about how we're moving forward. We don't take for granted the work that you're doing. Thank you. I just want to take a moment to appreciate you. I think we should.
Thank
give
you.
them a hand.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to hearing about the audit, which has a great result. Is there anything else, Dr. Payne from the Finance Committee? All right, thank you for that report.
One question.
Yes.
At some point, not right now, I just kept looking at the fact that the cost for legal services has gone up enormously. And in future, I'd like to take a look at what does that mean when we have to allocate. I wrote down the note. It's a significant amount of money for our legal services, and I'd like to get a more of a in-depth look at that. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving forward to the Diversity Policy and Human Resources Committee led by Mr. Biederman and members Dr. Murtada and Dr. Palacio and Dr. Payne.
All right, this time I'd like to ask Mr. Larson to come forward and present one resolution that we have for consideration today.
Good evening, Mr. Larson.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
So I would like to present resolution 56-2023. This is for the tuition assistant by addition of the policy 22.5 deferred payment. So we have been looking at updating our policy to allow more employees to participate in the tuition assistance. Unfortunately, we cannot do the prepayment based on legal recommendations. So this is what we have decided to offer to employees. Some of the colleges around Indianapolis offer deferred payment, and it is a contract between the employee, the employer, and the university or college that offer that ability to defer the payment until the employee finish their college. So based on the policy, we have recommended to add this language, which all the other criteria of the policy 222 had to be met before the deferred payment. But once that process start, the employee will start the process with the college and send us the information to do the agreement with the university or college that offer the deferred payment. So we are recommending to add in policy 222.5 deferred payment. Employees may be able to apply for deferred payment of tuition with their university or college. The employee is responsible for contacting the university or college to start the process and is responsible for providing all necessary information and required paperwork to the HR department. The library will complete all required paperwork for the deferred payment only if the obligations of the library to pay the employee's tuition is consistent with all the requirements of policy 222.1. Employees will be responsible for any federal state tax consequences resulting from the library's payment of the employee's tuition. Any questions?
Does this fund, is it only for MLIS or is any
Related degree. Mhm.
related degree or
Yeah,
any?
so normally for accounting, it could be anything related to accounting, HR, IT, so
So it
anything.
has to be related to their position,
Mhm.
but could they make the case that, say they want to get an English degree?
And we have done those. So if you are a public service associate, a PSA, if you are doing any bachelor's degree, like English, history, so we have approved those in the past, yeah.
And it was approved for 60,000 for 2020, or it's proposed for 2024.
Yeah, so this year we had gone over and we have moved budget money to from other characters. So hopefully next year we're all set.
I'd like the record to show that Amira Malcolm was one of the individuals that drew attention to this need for us reviewing and thinking about the policy and how it impacted staff. And so a special thank you to Amira for bringing that forward to our attention. Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? Dr. Palacio?
Thanks. So my question is, you mentioned that the employee would be responsible for taxes and that kind of thing. So if the employee incurs in, let's say, $5,000 tuition fee is not going as reimbursement, is going as like pay?
It's depending how the payment is at the end.
Correct, but that's the question.
So normally, because it is a reimbursement, the employee has already paid all the taxes. As of right now, if it's a deferred payment, the employee hasn't paid any taxes on the other end, so.
But when the payment comes out, does it come out as a reimbursement category or does it come out as income?
And that was a question we had talked to the attorneys and they offered to do this just because of the consequences that it could be depending on how the institution accept the payment.
Got it. So it depends on the institution then.
Depending on how they do the agreement.
So what happens here is the payment is deferred and then the library, upon the employee's successful completion, will pay the tuition directly. And so there could be tax consequences to the employee as a result of that.
Could be, yeah, again, depending on how the institution recognizes that, whether they recognize it as a reimbursement or whether they recognize it as a deferral.
Okay.
So each college have a different policy and way of accepting the payment. So it's depending on how the college will accept the payment at the end of the day.
Follow up. So is it that So I don't know if this is under consideration or not, but this is the discussion part. So I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it possible then for the library to cover that if the institution requires us to pay? So we're covering the full expense of the employee? Not enough if I'm getting into legal matters, but
The policy is drafted. That's the reason that that was drafted, is that
Mm-hmm.
there is question and it's not handled. First of all, the library's never done it. So we don't know how those institutions that accept deferred payments will categorize it. It certainly could be something that the board could reconsider if you have that all the institutions code it in a way that causes the tax impact.
so the whole premise, or not the premise, but the idea would be to do the most we can to protect the pocket of the employee. So
So we pay a max of 3,000.
mhm.
So anything else, it will be up to the employee. It's depending on how the college accept the payment.
Right.
So. And that's why it was drafted that way, just to make sure that they're aware that they could be. Now that we're saying there is gonna be tax responsibility, but they could be some tax implication based on the college.
But that doesn't mean that that we as a library want to
We-
cover as much as possible, right? Okay. I understand.
So that 3,000 is per semester, is that correct?
It's per year.
Per year? Okay.
Mhm.
I'm confused about this tax situation, and why there would be tax implication. So I don't want to
If
throw a
they-
monkey wrench in
yeah.
this, but I'm just wondering if there's
they-
not a way to manage this so that there are no tax implications.
It's
For our
kind of up to the,
employees.
it's kind of up to the receiving institution to
Mhm.
recognize it.
It's
As
not something the library controls. The library is not going to be driving the terms of the agreement with each institution. They are institution by institution based and created. And my presumption is that they are non-negotiable agreements.
Mhm.
So you sign this or you don't sign this, and you either accept how that they could classify it potentially as a scholarship, which may not have any tax impact. They could, as a reimbursement. So without having ever done it, I don't know that the library has the knowledge to understand whether or not there
So-
will be a tax impact.
So from our end, we would just do the same amount that we will normally do. It just depending on how the college will accept it.
What about a scholarship option?
I mean, yeah. Can we just be mindful? I'm sorry, but can we be mindful about this process
Mhm.
with our employees to make sure that the tax implications are eliminated or not there as often as it can? I guess that would be my question.
And
I understand the caveat, but I also don't.
we'll have to look at each contract
Yes,
depending on the college
would.
and either inform the employee, these are the implications whenever you
Right.
sign this,
Right,
but we won't be able to control it.
right.
So,
But if there's a way to manage the way that it is paid so that it is not does not end up with the tax bill for employees, I think we ought to be thoughtful about that
Mhm.
and intentional. That I guess that's why.
Mhm.
But have we considered a scholarship option?
the foundation is working with HR to create a scholarship at this moment. Yeah,
And that wouldn't have any kind of tax implication.
yeah, if it's a scholarship, it doesn't have any tax implications.
Awesome. Any other questions?
One more, I'm sorry. So the person doesn't have to do this option. They can go through the semester and then get reimbursed, correct?
Yep. Yep, this is just an extra option that the employee can use. Mhm.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none.
Just to comment that this came out of committee with two pass recommendations.
Great, so that would mean it has a favorable recommendation from the committee. So we just need a second.
Second,
Is there any discussion? Okay, then we'll have a roll call.
Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Lane,
Approve?
Dr. Matada,
Abstain. I'm not clear about the tax implications either. I'm so glad that the chair and Dr. Palacio asked that. It just seems like there's something per. I'm sorry. I just think that there's something else here that we're missing, and I'm not sure what it is, so I'm going to abstain right now.
Dr. Palacio,
Approve.
Dr. Payne,
Approve.
Ms. Tribble,
Approve.
Dr. White.
Approve.
The motion carries 6. What, with 1 abstention? Thank you. All right, Mr. Larson. Anything else?
That concludes the. report of the HR.
Thank you, Mr. Biederman. We'll move on now to the Facilities Committee chaired by Dr. White and with Mr. Lane and Dr. Murtada as members.
Thank you, Ms. Tribble. We're gonna call Adam to the table so he can take a beating on this one.
Oh, that's the second.
But we do have resolution for board approval, and because of the timeliness of having the project or roof replacement, we altered our protocol a little bit, but Adam can explain all that to you. Adam?
There we go. All right, so the first resolution I have is resolution 57-2023 is approval to award a construction services contract for the roof replacement of Decatur branch. So the roof was beyond its standard useful life. It is more cost effective to wholesale replace the roof rather than patch it and repair it. And similar to our previous 2 roof projects at College and Franklin Road, we employed Etica Group to assist us with the scope development. The estimated cost was over $150,000. And so we budgeted $200,000 and we used the invitation to bid process. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder came in at $99,980. And this will be funded via the 2018 bond fund, which is Fund 479. The vendor is not a city certified XBE and will perform 100% of the work. So as I mentioned, we used the invitation to bid process. We contacted 20 vendors, 7 of whom were XBEs, along with 2 business development organizations. We had a pre-bid conference and the site tour. I did not have the attendance for those. We received 4 bids. SPG was the lowest, and their response was reviewed by Etica Group, and it was found acceptable. Project completion is October 1, 2023, so we should have a new roof within the next couple of months. Any other questions or any questions? Did you want me to talk about the timing of?
No, yeah, we can explain the timing. We expedited this from committee because we wanted the roof to be replaced this fall, as opposed to the land waiting for the spring because of the condition of the roof. And we left it up to Adam to bring the recommendation to the board with the approval of the committee. So Dr. Matala and I wholeheartedly approved that particular effort. And so we have a due path on this recommendation.
So we have a due pass recommendation from the Facilities Committee on Resolution 57-2023 on construction services at the for roof replacement at the Decatur branch. Is there a second for this recommendation?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call.
Mr. Biederman,
Sorry, approve.
Mr. Lane, approve. Dr. Murtada,
Approved.
Palacio,
Approve.
Dr. Payne, Ms. Tribble,
Approved.
Dr. White.
Approve.
The motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. All right, the next resolution, then this presentation will actually come in two parts. I'm going to review what has been done before, and then I have two guests, Lisa Gompertz and Joe Jarzen from Schmidt Associates, who will go into the more technical side of the resolution and the work to be done. So let me go back. So Resolution 58, 2023 is a reauthorization of approval to award a services contract for the service area assessment and patron services analysis. This was previously approved, I believe it was Resolution 37-2023. There was just one line that was not updated regarding the total cost, and it was a large enough difference that we need reauthorization. So a little bit of the history about why we procured this service. The 2014 facilities assessment created a 20-year plan, which the library has followed pretty closely over the past 10 years. We have several new branches, several renovations, and it's been a great help. However, between COVID and even the 7 years prior to COVID, technology has changed, patron desires and needs have changed, and we needed a 10-year update to that 20-year plan. The initial scope of the 2014 assessment was estimated not to exceed $250,000. I adjusted the scope a little bit in the RFP that I put out. I'm sorry, the RFQ. And Schmidt's response met that scope and actually exceeded it in several places. And they submitted a not to exceed of $533,655 plus 5% for reimbursables. So that is significantly enough. That was the one line that I omitted from the original BAR. It was just an oversight on my part, but again, large enough that we need to have a reauthorization. The vendor team meets or exceeds all four of the XBE purchasing goals, and actually now that's out of date. Because as we were doing our process, they had submitted use of Vespa Group for the technology analysis. And come to find out, Shanika's group had basically done everything that we thought we might need to analyze. And so their services, while we appreciate the introduction, we appreciated the introduction to them in the initial meeting, they weren't needed. And so were they veteran or they were veteran? So they were veteran owned, sorry. And unfortunately, since we don't need their services, that does not meet the veteran owned. But upon the initial evaluation of this SOQ, the evaluation team scored them as meeting all four, given the information we had at the time. So it was a request for qualification process. It was advertised twice, notice sent to 77 vendors and 11 business development organizations. We held a pre-SOQ conference. We received 3 SOQs. There was a 5-person evaluation team. I was not part of it. I was merely the facilitator. They ranked the criteria, weighted them, scored them, and put it in the matrix. And they recommended Schmidt Associates as the winning vendor. So we already held the kickoff meeting. Information, this is a very rough outline. Information gathering is this month and next month. Analysis and assessment through the end of the year. And we will have a final report to replace that 2014 report in January. And we should, there we go. No, so now I'm going to ask, I need to stop doing that. Lisa and Joe to come up, and I'm going to be in the seat here. They will explain the scope of the work that they will provide.
And just to let you know, we have Renee from our consulting firm HBM on a call who's going to do a portion of this as well. So I just wanted to introduce her.
Right on. Hopefully you're there, Renee. So thank you guys for having us. My name is Joe Jarzen, as Adam mentioned, with Lisa. I am the client liaison for the community studio for Schmidt Associates, and it's my pleasure to be here with you guys this evening and to go over a few of these details with you about this project. Oh, there she is. Hi, Renee.
Hi, everyone.
Would it be better to have the Zoom or the slides?
I think we need the presentation.
Yeah.
Slides. Good. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Renee, we're not going to look at you the whole time here. So going to go look at the presentation. So oh, wait, that's not it.
That's it.
Yeah, it is. Okay, it just messed up. All right. Like I said, we're very excited about being part of this project. From what we understand, and some of this might be a little bit of a review or restatement of what was already said by Adam, but I guess it's worth restating again, just to note that as we understand, Schmidt Associates likes to lead by a servant leadership approach. And so it's very important for us to understand what your needs are as our client. And as we understand this project, this is a 10-year refresh from the 2014 facilities assessment. It's a reevaluation of the optimum services within the system post-pandemic. So we're living in a world that is very different than what it was a while back. And we're also looking at this in 3 different increments, 5, 10, and 20-year recommendations. This assessment is definitely needed because of the changes that the pandemic has created since 2020. Because of tech changes since that time in 2013, when your last review was finished. I think one stat that we looked at was that the population back in 2013, we have a 40% increase of people with smartphones since the last time we did this. So technology itself has completely changed and in each of our hands as well. And of course, just for longevity, making sure that we're having a chance to take a look at the changes that just regularly happen on a regular occasion. All this to say that this is happening across 26 locations across the whole system, and looking at each of those locations with each one of those levels of the short, medium, and long-term goals. So these are the goals that were in the RFQ. I'm not going to read them all, but I would like to call your attention to goals 2 and 3, which we understand from the team are really ones that are really rather important for us to be considering. They're all equally part of this process and very important to address them all. But these 2 in particular, very information intensive. Patron services, understanding how our patrons and residents use the library, how they interact with the spaces physically, but also on their own. This is very important for us to understand so we can make sure that we're best reflecting the recommendations that you guys need to make your services most fitting for them. As was said, I am very proud of the team that we put together. As someone who comes from an community engagement background, I understand the importance of making sure that we have team members who can really experience and convey their lived experience with this work. And with this team, not only did we do this because it was required, but because we felt that was the way we can deliver the best possible product. And so as you can see here, we have a number of consultants who are part of this, as was required. Everybody from HBM Architects, who we've worked with before and on projects for you guys. Engaging Solutions, a well-known firm here in town that will help support our effort to make sure that we're engaging engaging people both internally and externally. JQOL, a long-term time supporter and partner with us from the engineering side of things. Ourselves, the Fairbach Group, who many of you might know, Greg, again, bringing his lived experience to this as a person of disability. And of course, Powers and Sons to help us with cost estimates. All of these people will help bring the expertise that is needed for this project. And in particular, Engaging Solutions, who will be conducting 8 to 10 workshops throughout this whole process, quite a sizable time, plus the internal and external surveys, some of which may have already gone out to the internal staff. And Powers and Sons, who will be spending about 15 hours per facility for their part of the contract. I've already gone over some of this. This kind of outlines the division of the hours for each. We felt it very important to make sure we were estimating this in a realistic time frame of what would actually be needed for all these consultants to help achieve their part of the contract. much of this work has already begun. As you see here, we are here at the end of August, knee deep or shoulder deep into the data collection process. And some of that information will be shared here more thoroughly by Lisa. And then, of course, lastly, just here's the project overview of how we see each phase. Project startup, which is where we are, and in fact, kind of moving along into the data gathering phase, which is really where many of our teammates have begun. And then phase 3 and 4 yet to come as we finish off this process. So
just thought it would be helpful to dig in a little bit in terms of what the process is within each phase. The meetings that we have, these we've already had in terms of the kickoff meeting. The goals that you saw came from that meeting. We always start with trying to understand what the critical goals and success indicators would be for the client and reaffirm the scope and schedule. So those things were done in that kickoff meeting. We also talked about the assessment criteria, what we were going to be evaluating both from a utilization standpoint as well as a facility condition standpoint. In terms of activities, we've been working through the contracts, both on our side and our consultants. We developed the staff survey, which has been issued, and again, developed that assessment criteria for our walkthroughs. Deliverables, contract schedule, goals, survey, and the evaluation criteria. So this is really just getting the project up and running. Phase 2, we're anticipating 3 owner meetings. We've already had the first one. We've done our first 3 days worth of walkthroughs. We've walked through half of your facilities already, looking at 2 different components, really how the space is used and utilized. That's what HBM is looking at as our library planner and consultant. And then we're also taking a team of architects and engineers out to just kind of do an engineering and architectural perspective of the assessment that you've already had done, the 2023 facility condition assessment. And so we've any differences or adjustments that we've seen from our standpoint, we've documented into that document. We've got engaging solutions that's preparing for community engagement sessions, and we'll be reviewing that and planning with your staff here in our next meeting, and then we'll have our last review of assessment. So activities, again, 26 facilities to walk through. We're anticipating 8 to 10 community engagement sessions scattered around your different branches. And then we're really starting to gather the data. It's a variety of data from your strategic plan, your 23 facility assessment, your master plan, your previous one. A lot of statistical data. We know you've got your Gale analytics that we're processing through. That's a new tool for you. And then also getting input from other municipal entities around and how you're impacted by them. And then also pulling benchmarking data from a variety of different sources, your peers, just to see how you compare. And then you can see here kind of a variety of different deliverables that'll come out of that in terms of utilization, facility condition needs, et cetera. And we'll show you a few examples of these as we get a little bit later. Phase 3 is where we start to develop options. So we're going to take all the data that we've collected in phase 2. We're going to analyze that, the condition assessment, what feedback we get from your staff and your patrons. We'll start to draft options from that and then start to put cost to that and then look at some different variables. The cost is going to come in 3 different increments, a 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year plan. And we'll be looking at things like how your library is servicing your patrons, what flexibility is there in your branches, how's the workflow, material handling, and look at rough order of magnitude, kind of a minimal, moderate, and a high level. And then again, you can see the different deliverables. I'll point out the scope one. It is a little different. That is a proprietary tool that we've created with Power BI, if you're familiar with that tool. And basically, it's a graphic interface where we can put the data into it, and it gives you guys the ability to sort that data in a variety of different ways and even make it accessible to your patrons on your website if you desire to do so. And then phase 4 is really the reporting component of it. So we planned for a few different meetings here, one to present to your facilities and your board, kind of a series through there, and then we'll prepare a written PDF report scope if it's determined that we want to use that, and then prep a presentation similar to this. So those would be the deliverables. So as Adam mentioned, we've really already started here. We've begun to transfer the data, started to analyze that. We're working on getting the staff survey input back. We've completed half the assessments, and we are in the midst of planning our community engagement. This is just a few pictures from the tours that we've done to date. And so we wanted to take a minute just to give you an example of what some of the product would look like. And we're going to use Renee, if you want to start.
Sure, absolutely. So on the left-hand side, you see example of collection areas by square footage. So one of the things we do when we walk through the buildings is verify the floor plans, what you have in the buildings, and then we start to compare your facilities against each other and do an analysis of how the space is currently allocated versus what the usage patterns actually are. What are people doing in the building? What are they coming in from?
It's lost you.
Hold on, Renee.
Sorry about that.
We kind of hear you, but.
While we're waiting on her, I asked you and Adam a question. When you go through these, do you have a system for prioritizing who's going to be first on the list?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm just putting in a plug because people are worrying me that we seriously need to look at Harville. Okay, and I keep getting that over and over. And bad thing is I haven't been to that branch yet, but I've had enough people to tell me that I gotta go to that branch, and but that's why I needed to know the criteria for placing them. So
It's twofold. One would be how well it serves the patrons.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the condition of the facilities, and we'll be overlaying both of
by
those.
serving the patron, you're not talking about population, you're talking about quality of service.
Correct.
Okay. And the population of a usage, that doesn't play a factor in this, does it?
We'll be looking at the demographics and whether there's adequate space for the population that it serves, if the demographics have changed over the last 10 years, and whether the branch is appropriately, has the right collections for that as an example.
I guess what I'm saying is we had some majority minority communities that had nice branch libraries, and we had a very historic one that was closed. It was for lack of utilization. I was Flanner House, and Harville is a concern from that standpoint too. It may have a lower usage, but it's so vitally important to that community. So we just want you to incorporate that in your thinking too.
Well, and that's where I think the community engagement piece
Yeah.
from your
Yeah, well,
staff and the community will overlay as well. All right, Renee, can we hear you?
Lisa, just to back on that comment.
Hang on, Renee. We still can't hear you very well. They're working on the sound.
Sorry.
There you go.
All right, is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So to follow up on that comment, part of the evaluation of how the buildings are used also takes into account why people might not be going in there. You know, has usage decreased? Is the building currently serving the community in the best way in terms of materials and services that are being offered? You know, that's part of this puzzle. And so things that we will be looking at also include patron convenience, access to services and staff, technology use, collection use, availability of meeting and gathering space, security, and then overall impressions of the space. And so all of these things combined will help paint a picture of what could be done to increase use at a branch, especially visits, because we know in many communities, people are not always coming in for the physical collection. Children's materials, yes, typically, but adult collections not the same way they used to be, not in every location. We can go to the next slide, please. So similar to that, you know, study of your card holders and people visiting the branches, we start to look at if the buildings are located in the best area in terms of where the users are coming from, and also proximity of the buildings to each other. Is this a community that relies on public transportation? Do people have their own automobiles? There are a lot of variables that go into matching up your buildings with the right pockets of population. Next slide. And then we start to dial into each individual building. So this is an example of just a brief tip of the iceberg of the type of information we're collecting for each building. In addition to photos, just an examination of the demographics of the area, service area, population, and how the space is generally utilized currently. In the next slide. This gives a graphic representation of what's happening inside each of your buildings. So here, the blue bubbles are observations, things that we saw through visiting the buildings, and you see they're noted on as to where they correspond with each space in the library. And the gray bubbles are recommendations. So in one view, you get to see what's happening in this area and an idea for how to fix it. And the next slide. And then we take that a step further to also trying to implement some of these recommendation ideas through bubble programs that will give you a head start as you look at ways to improve the building, whether it's the building as a whole or certain areas of the building that may not be functioning as well as they could be.
And then with the utilization data that Renee just went through, we would also overlay the facility condition assessment. And what we do is kind of score those components and start to prioritize that to make sure that we're addressing the most urgent issues in the short term and go moving forward. So that's just an example of some of the deliverables that'll be a part of the study. The study itself will be organized kind of in 6 or 7 sections as we've illustrated here, and you can start to see of the different areas, which parts of the team will be leading those sections. But I wanted to end with sort of just a kind of overview of what's a little bit different than the 2014 study, what we'll be doing in the 2024 study that'll be sort of an add-on. The patron experience is really a big piece of it. We'll be getting specific feedback from each branch. We're getting that from the branch managers as we walk through. We'll be outlining, as Renee just showed, a conceptual layout with recommendations for each branch. You have your 2023 assessment. We are overlaying with that architectural and engineering feedback onto it. We're actually, the previous one was based more on life cycle cost, and we're actually putting eyes on equipment and adding some additional condition assessment to that. And then community engagement, which I think is a new component, which really wasn't a large piece of the previous one. And we'll be having multiple meetings to get feedback from your constituents. And then the budgeting, which again, in the previous one was based more on square footage and just overall deficiencies, will be very site specific based on patron experience, community engagement, and facility condition. So it'll be a little bit deeper dive than what the 2014 one was. And so hopefully it'll give you additional information to be able to build on for your strategic plan next year, which I understand will be a major activity that you'll be building from this on. And with that, we will answer any questions you might have.
I have a large number of questions. At the very beginning of this presentation, you said, no, Adam said, which was so important, that things have changed just within the past 10 years. And what you're talking about is giving us 5-year, 10-year, and 20-year kinds of projections. And so we know things are going to change substantively over the next 15 to 20 years. And so as you give us costs for anywhere from $250,000 to $533,000, over $500,000 for this, this makes me pause and wonder, how is it that we can think about 20 years out and plan for not only utilization, but conditions of facilities in a way that really does speak to what the library is doing before we get to our strategic planning? You said toward the very end that this will help with our strategic planning, and yet our strategic planning is beginning to be developed now. And so how is it that we are looking at these kinds of stages and the kinds of deliverables that you're talking about, 6 to 7 different areas, and at the cost which would not to exceed over $500,000?
So some of the projected costs that'll be in that 20-year window will be facility related. You have certain life cycle costs based on systems. So like an air handling unit or an electrical system, we know lasts approximately a certain duration. And so some of that is what's going to be built out into that 20-year increment. You're right, the utilization information will probably have to be reevaluated in 10 years and maybe make some adjustments to that. We'll project out as best we can in those 5 and 10-year increments, and a little bit on the 20. The 20 year is really going to be more facility based than anything else, facility condition based. That's what you're going to get in that last increment more than anything.
If I can add to that, I'm taking a multi-decade view of this. We had the 2014 assessment, which was a 20-year plan, and even 2014, 20 years out was dubious at best. Now, the 2023 refresh, we're learning from what the 2014 assessment taught us, what went well, what didn't. This 2023 refresh, when we revisit it in 2033, whatever company we hire, we'll take a look at this one, what went well, what didn't, especially for the longer term. It's an iterative process that will happen over years and decades. I think it's worthwhile to take the long view because the library is not going anywhere.
No, the library is not going anywhere because it's a major community hub. Absolutely. We heard that from Connie in her comments. But you said that the previous study was involving the beyond the life, you want to go beyond the life cycle and the life cycle costs. And that's not determined by you, that's determined by how this branch and the other 25 branches really do develop their responsiveness to the community and how the communities change. And the communities will be changing significantly, just as Connie talked about in her presentation. And so to go ahead and say, we are going to be respectful of a process that is going to change. And yes, taking the long view is wise, absolutely. But knowing too that demographics are going to change, the life cycles are going to change, the utilization is going to change. Just from Deb Adams' presentation in a previous meeting, we know that even the materials that we're going to be using are going to change significantly. And so to have a projection of this size for us to be able to do realistic budget management when we're getting hit with costs unbelievable, raising costs for legal fees, raising costs for supplies, raising costs for technologies, raising costs for so many things. We as a board of trustees have to be very careful about how we think about the long term. And so I'm raising a number of concerns here. And I'm particularly worried when we say, okay, we know that you're not certified XBE, but you're going to use a number of other contractors to meet that need. That is the problem in and of itself.
Could you explain that? Could you expand that with
Absolutely.
the subcontractors? Because that's a standard practice in
We
facilities.
talked about this several times before, that this library is dedicated to really reaching hard to get the XBE numbers in.
Mhm.
And so Schmidt has done a good job of trying to get some more contractors under them to do it. But the fact is that you as a contractor are asking us to pay for your work of going out and getting more contractors under it. That's exactly what I mean.
Okay, that's a conversation to have. Yes. Was there a question in there or was just a comment of you are concerned about
You
the
asked me a
XBE
question, so I
process?
responded to your question.
Okay, responding to your initial comment, did you have what was the original question with the XBE and the subcontractors?
I made a comment
Yes.
about the contractors and
Okay.
the subcontractors, and
Yes.
we're about to move into a very important part of assessing our work, our facilities, the utilization of our facilities, et cetera.
Mhm.
And you want us to move forward with a very significant contract
Mhm.
with an organization that has already told us that they're not city certified XBE, but they will go ahead and get lots of subcontractors under it.
Mhm.
And so here we go down that path, which we have said from the very beginning as a board, that we want to start trying not to do that. We've said that for a number of years, that we'd be working diligently to look for those contractors that would be XBE in the first place, rather than always looking for who will they subcontract and subcontract, whether it's Engaging Solutions or others. And so how do we actually say we're going to do three things? One, guard over this whole idea of 5, 10, and 20 years, taking the long view, but also being very, very mindful of the very thing that you started out with. Things are going to change within a matter of a short period of time. Also thinking about what does it mean to have a not to exceed cost of over $533,655 plus 5% reimbursable expenses. That's a lot of money. And it's a lot of money when we're trying to handle our fiscal matters as it is. And how do we handle those when our fiscal officer just told us we have to be careful, we're going to do well, and we're going to continue to do that kind of thinking. And the last thing had to do with what I raised as a concern about the city certified XBEs.
Okay. Yeah, did you want to?
No, you go ahead first. on
Okay.
that.
I'd be happy to address all of those. Let's start with the cost, $533,000. the expenses that were mentioned in the finance presentation, and correct me if I'm wrong, were more focused on operational expenses. Right, and this 533,000 will be paid out of bond funds, which we've already assigned funds to it. It is funded. So the operational and the debt service funds are two totally different budgets that are funded by two totally different sources of revenue. And so this project is paid for. It's shocking to see more than 100% increase in cost in as opposed to my budget. I was initially taken aback as well. I was okay, let's dig deeper. Let's see what we got. And we went through their SOQ, followed up. You saw the amount of work that is involved in that. And the evaluation committee ranked cost, weighted it, scored it. And even given the estimated cost that was in their statement of qualifications, still ranked Schmidt #1 out of the 3 that replied. And so that would be my response to the cost question.
But you also said that it's already paid for. It's not already paid for.
Funds have been assigned to a project.
That's
Funds
the
have been
difference.
assigned to this particular project.
No,
within the
funds have
fund.
been assigned, but it's not been paid for. You just said it's been paid for.
You're right. We have not given Schmidt the money. We have budgeted money to give Schmidt for their services in the future upon receipt of those services within our bond budget.
And yet they've said that they are already in phase, did you say phase 3? Phase 2 of the work. And so I'm calling attention to the fact that there is a great deal of work to be done. It's important work, but at the same time, we need as a board, as trustees, to really think very carefully about how do we handle that bond? How do we handle the cost? And how do we do it in a way that says, yes, we're not just going to be able to move forward with anything without our strategic planning moving forward the way that we have said. And that is on, I think you said, Greg, we were planning on launching that. Is it in 2024? In 2024.
I was going to say, to respond to a few of those, the way we came up with the fee was we took exactly what was out of the RFQ and put hours to it. So it was a direct correlation to what was requested out of the RFQ. Every master plan that we do, we treat as a living document. We know that things are going to change. Your priorities will change. You might have an emergency that comes up. We need to adjust. You will have documents, backup documents that will allow you to make those adjustments, whether through spreadsheets or the scope document, where we can make that a living document and you can make adjustments over the next 5, 10, 20 years. We never want it to be a document that's fixed and you have to live with it for the next 10, 20 years. We want it to be something that you can change and make iterative. Going to the XPE, it hasn't been made public yet, but as of last week, we transferred stock ownership and we will be a WBE. We are actually 51% women owned now. We just filed the paperwork last week. So we can't say that we are officially an XPE yet, but we anticipate being there before the end of the year. So.
I don't want to keep belaboring it, but if it helps, I think there's a lot to be said about what you're talking about, Dr. Murtada, about engagement and in preparation of your strategic plan process. Again, I come from that background, from a nonprofit world, in a world in which I led the community engagement process. Oftentimes that process is left behind. That work in this particular project is what really helps make this project a whole lot different than what you did in 2013, 2014. It costs money to do that. And to shortchange that engagement process is just basically saying you don't want to do it. So what you're doing with this particular project is making that investment, that commitment, which then I believe lays the groundwork very nicely for what you guys will be embarking upon in 2024 with your strategic planning. And this will hopefully help merge that the physical building with what people are currently thinking and needing today and what they want to see happen in the future. And I think that's an investment that you can't argue with. I know from my experience, when in my nonprofit world, if I had this kind of information come to me in preparation of some of the strategic planning that I've been involved with, that would be massively helpful.
I agree with you fully, Joe.
Yeah.
I've worked with you and I know what the community engaged process takes. And I know you don't do the horse
Right,
after the cart.
certainly.
You put it beforehand. And so while we're planning on doing the community engaged part here, we're planning on doing that.
Right.
To say that we would base it on the work that you're charging, and we don't have a disaggregation of that data, of that cost.
Right.
That's not disaggregated for us. I looked for it. We don't have it. We don't know how much the community engagement part was going to cost us, how much the utilization of the facility is going to cost, what the conditions of facilities are going to cost. We don't have that disaggregated, and we should have that disaggregated so that we know how much does engaging solutions cost us? How much do these other pieces cost us? And I think that's critically important before we move forward with approval.
And
I'm
that,
mindful of the time. One of the things Eugene as always does, it says, okay, we've talked long enough, but I want to just thank you for answering some of these questions. Thank you so very much.
and that information that you requested, the breakdown, it was part of our RFP, so we can easily provide that. Each of the consultants and their roles were broken down in the RFP in terms of their costs.
And we didn't receive that.
We can get that to you very quickly.
Yeah, one of the steps is you're going to be coming before the facilities committee before we come back to the board anyway, right? Alan? That's all.
Yes, yeah, we'll have a mid to 2/3 project.
And we will invite any other board members to that facility meeting so that they can be actively engaged in the process. So we can definitely get that set up.
If I might, Madam Chair, one of the concerns I heard Dr. Murtada express related to XBE utilization versus goals. In a contract, which we have not executed yet, the inclusion and the utilization of those XBE partners is a material term to the contract. So it's not something you can say, hey, we're going to use 30% and we come back later and you use 20%. That would be an issue in the contractual arrangement between parties. So I want you to be aware and the public to be aware that that's part of the contract negotiation process, that utilization is included as a material term.
And I know we have ways to accommodate that type of expectation. I think ironically today, I have a video honoring Wayne Smith. And I had the pleasure of working with him in major projects for Indianapolis Public Schools and other things. So I know the reputation of your firm. And I know that from incorporating females into the operation, you've just been outstanding at that. In terms of minority representation, that's something that I know Wayne always talked about. So you have a great reputation and we know you're going to come back. Now, you can't do anything about inflationary costs. I mean, look at housing costs, material costs, it's going to keep going up. So the questions we're going to have to answer is, how can we justify and then find the funding to achieve these goals? The goals may have to be altered somewhat, but like you said, we're in a great position because we're going into extension of the strategic plan and we got this planning. So I think it's great, but I think it's not going to be easy because every day the price is going to go up. We've seen that. That's why we double the price in the projection, because there's nothing you can do about it. But we need to be able to justify and defend that when other people or critical thinkers asked us those kind of questions. So we'll be looking forward to you guys when you come again. And the horse is dead. We're going to let him stay there and we're going to walk away from this.
I got one more question. This is simple. The women-owned firms that you bring, please have that disaggregated because I want to know how many Black and brown women are part of that.
You want to see a staff breakdown of that?
Yes.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. As I lead the community studio, it's important for us to make sure that we have people that can relate and understand the situation of the projects that we're working on. And I've told this before to our marketing team as we're looking at how we talk about the community studio, and this is exactly one of points I was bringing up. So appreciate your comment there. Good.
I also have a,
Yeah.
so just want to echo a little bit of what Dr. Matata was saying, because I have similar concerns. So the 20-year out, I understand life cycles and all that is in place, but and the utilization ratio and all that, but what is not kind of clicking in my mind right now is we have, and you said it was there's some error somewhere, but we're basically doubling on the estimate. And that happened within how many months?
Oh, it didn't happen with a, well, I'm sorry, between
So
the
between the
BAR
250
and now,
the-
or?
we're going from 250 to 533.
Yes, yeah. So my initial estimate of this cost was $250,000. That was based on a slight increase in scope that not slight, but an increased scope that I wrote into the RFQ that was beyond the 2014 assessment with inflation. And I was wrong.
But that's what's not clicking. Like how is it that we're not?
It's actually quite.
Why is it so?
It's quite simple. The roof at college was originally estimated to be $175,000, and it ended up costing us $298,000. We were able to find the additional funds. The roof at Franklin Road was estimated to be $150,000 initially. We were able to find extra money to pay the $296,000 that it came in as, between professional services and material services, along with a slight increase in scope that once we started to get technical on the roof replacement, once we engaged Etika Group, they realized that both of them needed wholesale roof replacements, front to back rather than portions, which we were hoping for. So that was an increase in scope. We underestimated some inflationary pressures, and before you know it, you're at 50, 75% increases, 100% increases. And we have had to, honestly, we've had to sacrifice other projects to get these priority projects done. And if you ask me what a priority project is, this 20-year assessment is one of my #1 priorities. My first was a facilities condition assessment to analyze our capital assets. The next was this long-term assessment to figure out what we need to do with the actual buildings themselves. That is my #1 and #2. And I told John that actually when I got hired. These are the first things that I would like to do. It's been a couple of years, so I'm sure you don't remember the conversation, but that's been my one and two for 2 years.
So I'm sorry, my point is if we're not able to even estimate within a few months or years, such a great amount, how is it that we're still trying to figure out what's going to happen in 20 years? And why we're paying for that part of the scope if if we can't
Just to make sure I'm clear, are you
if we
asking
can't
if has our fee changed in this amount of time? Is that what you're asking? Because what we submitted was what we felt was what it would take to do what you guys were asking us to do. That hasn't changed since we submitted that proposal. So if you're asking like, oh, how do we go from whatever 250 to 533? We have not changed that. That's what we said. This is what it's going to cost.
We literally just took each task that was asked for in the RFQ, put hours to it, and that's how we came up with the fee.
If you're asking.
So it's a mismatch between library's estimate and then their proposal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I took a look at my scope, saw
Got
the
it, got it.
50,000 budget, thought it would match up.
Okay, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Good.
My question is, thank you for your presentation, is for Adam. When I was listening to the presentation, a lot of it sounded like what was brought up by Luminat when we were doing approving the refreshes for some of the branches. And knowing that this process is getting ready to start in a couple months and then be completed by the end of the year, then those refreshes will happen for Pike, Nora, and Central Library. So how will that factor in when we're getting information on olds? It'll be old information by the time they're done with the report, because then the refreshes are gonna happen.
We're getting a copy of what's being anticipated for those and building that into the report. So any plans that have been developed, we're counting them for those.
Yes, and I understand that, but the thing about it is when those refreshes happen, the space or what they have in the report isn't always what happens and how the space is utilized in real time until, you know, you can really observe with your eyes how it's actually being used and how people are interacting and
And so I'm sorry, I guess I'm not understanding the
what I'm
question.
recommending for the board is maybe we table this and because there's still a lot of questions that are coming up. And maybe think about talking about it further at the beginning, January.
I don't think it would be wise to table that. I think we need to go forward and have a better explanation of what's going on, but this process really needs to continue because every time you table it's going to get more expensive and your buildings are going to be compromised more. So it's wise to make sure we slow down, but it's even wiser to move forward because it's not going to get less expensive. It's going to get more expensive. And what Nora and Pike and those areas, we have bond issues to cover the cost of what we're going to try to do there. But going out, just like you said, there's going to be some things we're going to be compromised in meeting probably the cost of them. Then we're going to have to find money again.
Can I ask a clarifying question of Mr. Brown? So the BAR, the initial BAR 37/2023, that the board approved that and the resolution for this service up to $250,000. That is still active and in effect, correct?
So that would be I was actually going to interject that. Yeah, that the $250,000 number has been approved. It was when we started drafting a contract and became aware that 533 was not included in the board action request that I asked Adam to bring it back to the board to clarify the authority that the CEO had to execute this agreement. So today, if this matter is not approved, if this matter was defeated, you could, a $250,000 contract would be permitted under authority already given by the board to the CEO and to Mr. Parsons.
And so in effect, the resolution today is adding an additional 283,000, not going from 0 to 533,000.
And that was simply an oversight when you did 2023-37. Did you say earlier?
Yes, there was some verbiage in there regarding the budget that I use in most every BAR that I submit. And I saw the 250,000, it clicked. Yep. Okay. That's what we budgeted. I can't attest to exactly what my mind went through, but it was omitted from the budget or the financial and strategic plan impact. And so that was a mistake on my part. Ms. Brown caught it and realized it was sizable enough for a reauthorization.
And this is one of the reasons too why, to your point, Eugene, I'm sorry. Your point, Eugene, we're not stopping the work. We have an allocation all the way up to $250,000. And going back to Schmidt for saying, okay, how do you actually minimize or change up some of those hours that you're charging us and think about what is it that we need to do in order to still have a good assessment and think about it in a way that really does support the public library. But what does it mean in terms of the fact that we underestimated all of the different things and we didn't see all of the different things that were submitted to you? That doesn't stop the work. That means the work continues, but it has a budget to work within for right now. And if it comes back to the facilities committee, we can look back at that work and see what we will do with that work and have it so that we know that that's what we're approving for. That additional 200, how much was it?
$83,000.
$283,000.
If I could make a comment on that, I appreciate where you're coming from. However, I can't in good conscience ask a company to say, I need you to do scope X, but I'm only giving you half of X money up front.
But you defined a scope.
I did.
With that scope, did not include all the things that you brought to us. And so if we turn around and say, yes, we go for this amount, then that says that we are not fulfilling our responsibility as trustees. We need to see what the scope was and all of the things that we are being allocated, that additional over $250,000. I think we don't want to be derelict in our responsibilities.
Okay,
I think we're fiduciary and we're not being derelict. We might be. The way these things are done, these kind of projects, you deserve to have answers to your question, but at the same time, this is just a very common process. Now, of course, Adam made a mistake by his omission, but I think he assumed because we're already funded for the $250,000 that it was right after he was, I think, advised by our lawyer that you really have to take that amount to the board again or what have you. I think that was wise to do, but personally, I don't see anything else you're going to get out of it by not passing it because you're going to put a lot of people on the hold and it's probably going to be more expensive if you put it off too long. It's not going away. And like I was saying about Harville, there are places in tremendous need of renovation, repair, because Fort Bend is a brand new place. It's shiny, it's great, but we have other parts of the city that needs those kind of attractions too. And I don't think we can postpone these things. Now, it means that we're going to have to put a little trust in Adam, but from my working with him since I've been on the board, he's conscientious, he's hardworking, and he's a tremendous planner, and he knows the process. So I'm willing to trust him in getting that done, but I'm only the chair of the facilities committee, and Carla, you and Stephen are on it. So I'm just giving you my position on that based on working with Smith and other people for many years. But I understand where you're coming from, and I'm not going to object to it, but I just think in the end, you're going to be a little further behind and costing more money.
So can I ask?
Absolutely.
So, and I rarely talk. So just to understand the timeline. We put out this RFQ, thank you. And we got responses. Those are evaluated by a team of people internally, including Kim, Peggy, Michelle, Mike, Deb, and yourself.
The first 5 were the evaluation team. I facilitated the discussion.
And all of the numbers in there were well above 250,000.
No, the other 2 were approximately 250,000, but they did not meet the full scope.
So the only responsive and responsible bidder is sitting here, and we just made a mistake on the form.
Correct. Yes.
So this is like a typographical error.
It is an error of omission. Yes.
And we have, I'm sorry, can I just add, we have allocated funding for it in the bond fund already.
Yes, I have a project string with $550,000 in the bond allocated to this project.
Okay. Can we move forward with the vote on this? Is there any further conversation? I'd like to call for the question if we know. Okay. Did you have any other comments? No, okay, great. So we are looking at resolution 58, 2023 regarding the award of services contract for service area assessment and Patreon services that has received a favorable recommendation. It has not.
Not received a recommendation.
Okay. All right, so we
Oh,
need,
Can I ask one more question?
sure,
What is the 5% reimbursable? Is that 5% plus the 533,000? What is the reimbursable expenses? We didn't get any of that disaggregated.
Mostly travel expenses. Schmidt is partnered with HBM, just like they did with West Perry. It was Schmidt and HBM combo that built or designed West Perry branch. And that was part of that contract as well. HBM is based out of Cleveland, and they've sent several of their team to do 3 days worth of facility walkthroughs. We'll send have 3 more days, and various other small expenses such as those.
Printing expenses.
Printing expenses.
Yeah.
That, it's not just HBM, it would be engaging solutions for
Yes.
their workshops, for Greg Farabach's or visits to each of the sites and so forth. So
Yes.
all of the other partners on this team.
Mhm.
so we're looking for a motion to approve resolution 58, 2023.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. We will have a roll call to approve resolution 58, 2023.
Mr. Biederman,
Approve.
Mr. Lane,
Abstain for now, just because I like to see more discussion in committee.
Dr. Matata,
No.
Dr. Palacio. Approve. Dr. Payne,
I'm saying.
and Ms. Tribble,
Approve.
and Dr. White.
Approve.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the motion passes 4 to
3.
1 to 2 abstain. 4 yes, 1 no, 2 abstain. So the motion carries. That concludes the report of the Facilities Committee. Want to thank you. Thank Schmidt and Adam and the young woman who was on Zoom, Renee, if she is still with us, for a very spirited and deep conversation. And yes.
So I just wanna thank you for everything you're doing, but also especially for working with Fairback on people with disabilities.
Absolutely. Like I said, I was pretty proud of that team. Appreciate your vote tonight.
We appreciate your report and your answering all our questions. All right, have a good evening.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll move forward and thank you everybody for your input. And we look forward to continuing to get good updates, Mr. Parsons, as we go forward on this project.
Never mind.
The Library Foundation update is the next agenda item. Mr. Biederman?
Sure. All right, here's the update for August 2023 for the Library Foundation. We'd like to share 2 updates from foundation funded programs this year. Thank you to the library staff that helped make these programs a big success. The first is the Family Concert Series. The Family Concert Series is a monthly concert series and includes auditorium at Central Library featuring different styles of music ranging from symphonic, baroque, jazz, opera, and some from around the world. The shows are interactive and geared towards children. 76 people attended the opera program and 732 people have attended the overall concert series since the beginning of the year. One comment from a patron, my 2-year-old son and I have never been to an opera before, so this was awesome first exposure. We wouldn't have had this opportunity if the library didn't offer it. Thank you. The second program is the Homeschool Workshop. The Homeschool Workshops aim to provide attendees with a variety of information and resources to enhance their homeschool program. The workshops are planned quarterly and include sessions on digital resources, STEAM activities, parent resources, and health and wellness resources. The program was recently held at Nora Branch Library and attended by 52 people. Patron comment with regard to that was absolutely fantastic. My 7-year-old and 10-year-old both enjoyed it. I especially appreciated the facilitator's reference to frustration during the creative process. My 7-year-old felt normalized, seen, and encouraged because she felt frustration at times during the activities. We want to further thank 80 donors who made gifts last month. Top foundation donor is the Arthur Jordan Foundation. This month, they were proud to give $47,000 to the library, including bilingual story time, family concert series, East 38th Street Career Center, and the Baden author lecture. That's the end of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Biederman. We'll move on to the report of the CEO, Mr. Gregory Hill.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President, Board members. I have before you Resolution 2023 regarding finance, personnel, and travel. It is the monthly confirmatory resolution that is presented before you each and every month. I or other EC members could answer any questions that you may have regarding the resolution. If you don't have any questions, I ask that you would approve the resolution.
Can I ask you, is it okay if he repeats what he just said?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have before you the resolution.
Down here, pay attention. Class.
Resolution 59-2023 regarding finance, personnel, and travel. It's the monthly confirmatory resolution that is occurs between each board meeting. This resolution is the typical form, which is before you each month. I or other EC members would be happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding the resolution. Otherwise, I would ask that you would approve it.
Yeah, I would like to ask about in separations on page 86 about Amira Malcolm's position. Amira was here tonight to say that she only received a 2-week notice before getting this letter of separation. It doesn't seem like Amira wants to leave. Is there a justification for why she only got a 2-week notice? Is that standard protocol?
That's a great question. I think she had a 3-week notice, but we could extend that if we needed to, but I would like to just read a statement here. We are grateful for Amira's work. Amira's term is reflected on this month's report. By way of background, she was hired as the diversity fellow in a contract position to help with the implementation of CBLC Phase 2, beginning in January of 2021. The contract had a 2-year term, but had been funded to extend it for several additional months. With the scope and term of that position being completed, the position has been terminated in accordance with the contract. And we would like for Amira to stay too, but there's not a position in the CBLC. And I think we're working with trying to find her a position.
Yeah, because I mean, just the optics of it, and talking about, that she works under Nichelle Hayes, the optics of it looks like retaliation, honestly. And so I would like to see Amira be supported. And I will advocate for that. And I would like to discuss amending the agenda to remove Amira's separation tonight to go into further discussion in committee.
That's been moved and seconded.
Want to
Start.
make sure we're clear on what the motion was. The
Yeah.
motion is to amend the resolution by removing that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just want to clarify.
Keeping Amira employed for now. The economy is really bad with 3-week notice. That's just not enough time for Amira to find another job. And I believe that's why she came here, probably out of desperation. In this kind of economy, it's not a good look.
Let's just say something as bad as we need Black librarians. And this is what she's in training for. I just hope there is some kind of way, Greg, we can find to keep her in that position.
Yes, ma'am. It's the diversity fellow.
Yeah.
And then after the 2 years, that rotates to the other support departments. It's not, we want to keep Amira, but it will just, maybe it won't be in the CBLC. We have to find another place in the library that has a position for it.
Are there other vacancies?
There are other vacancies.
I believe that we are acting outside our lane.
Yes, we are.
and that this is an administrative process, and that it would be inappropriate for us to take this action. I'm in support of all of our staff. I am in support of the CEO and his team doing the work that they are designated to do. And I also know that the CEO and the Director of HR have provided a list of other positions that Ms. Malcolm is available, that are available for Ms. Malcolm to apply to. And I believe that we should allow the process to go as the administrative team has designated. And I realize it's difficult, but I would like to go on record saying that I believe we are out of our lane. So there's also this misperception that this position has been referred to the board as an exception. The regular process is every personnel action that happens every month is on this resolution that Greg provides to us at each meeting. So this is not any different than any other presentation. And I'm responding to you out of courtesy, but please just reminding people here that this conversation here is for the board. But that is the reason. So it is not a special act. It is a normal act. And our administration is following their process and procedure, and I believe we should support it. And we should support them in assisting Ms. Malcolm as needed for other positions that may be available to her.
I mean, I feel like it does fall within our bounds as we are here to evaluate the
Okay.
CEO. And if it looks bad on the CEO, I think we need to discuss that.
Okay.
And then it looks bad on our CEO to make this decision.
Are there any other comments?
Just a question, who will be leading the CBLC?
Right now, Robin Kelly is the acting, she is the manager of adult services. She will be.
So there's a motion and a second to amend the resolution that would remove line. Do we have the line number or the page
It's
number?
page 86 under separation.
It's page 86 under separations for Mayor Malcolm as diversity fellow, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so the motion to amend is on the floor. We need to do a roll call for that.
A roll call, Mr. Biederman,
No.
Mr. Lane,
Approve.
Dr. Murtada,
Approved.
Dr. Palacio,
Abstain.
Dr. Payne,
Approved.
Ms. Tribble,
No,
Dr. White.
No.
Does not pass.
so, okay, it was 3-3 with one abstention, so the amendment does not pass. So we will move forward with the resolution as it's been presented.
Madam President,
Yes.
just a point of personal privilege. I've noticed this young lady since she gave her presentation. She's a very impressive young lady. The protocol and all of this is if you got a CEO and you got a director of human resources and you have a job that has that kind of limitation and you make this exception, you're doing their job. And if there are other positions available, I really want her to apply for them because I don't want her to leave library, but that particular position had that funded limit on it. And you can't compromise that, else every employee that gets this kind of action will be coming to the board.
Absolutely.
And you start a precedent that why should they worry about HR or the CEO when the board is going to micromanage? And you can't have that. And I'm taking the person out of it. I'm talking about the principal. The
Absolutely.
principle of it is they have their job to do and we have our job to do. Okay, and the great thing is there are some other positions open, so we need to keep her in the library because she seems like a quality young lady. But when you have a funded position that's funded for a period of time and you extend that period, it indicated that you really wanted her and liked her, but you can't, you have to make a decision and you say you're going to terminate it. If you override that, then you're taking their job. So on the principle of the thing, I have to go with administration because I understand just how that goes.
Thank you, Dr. White.
Well, we have overturned a decision of the CEO before in terms of employment, if you remember. And so then I will just form a question then. And my question is, has the library ever rolled a contracted employee into a full-time position? Ever?
Not that I'm aware of.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So is my understanding, being part of the board, our only employee is Greg.
It's true.
Yes, that's correct.
Everybody else is Greg's employee.
That's true.
And so my vote reflects that because that my duty is to evaluate him, not anybody else. And I don't know what the situation is with the mayor. I like her presentation when she did it. I was there and like Dr. White said, I think we want to keep her as a talent, but that's not my job to do. That's for Greg and his team to figure out. And that's how the structure is. So it is outside of our lane. And I understand what Stephen is saying, but this resolution is not about evaluating Greg. If the optics come back to being on the wrong side or whatever, that's something we can do in the evaluation of Greg. And that's a valid point. It's just, it's not really not in our lane.
Just point of correction, the rest of the library staff are not Greg's employees. They are employees of the Indianapolis Public.
Yes.
Just point of correction, that's all.
I agree.
Right.
And
I
we are
wasn't
appointing Greg to lead
asking
that.
for an evaluation of the employee. I was asking to table her separation for more discussion in the HR committee. Thank you.
I'm asking just in the interest of time, because if we are much later, I'm going to get an email from one of our members telling me how late our meeting. It's too late. I'm gonna get it. So I'd like to move forward because we do have other agenda items. So I'd like to ask if we can move forward with resolution 59, 2023 regarding finances, personnel and travel. We already have, the motion has been moved and seconded. And I believe we're now,
We got a motion to amend, but I don't believe you.
oh, we have not. Okay, so we need a motion to adopt resolution 59, 2023. Is there a motion? And a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We'll now have, is there any discussion? Nothing further? Okay, hearing none, then we'll have a roll call on resolution 59, 2023 as it has been presented.
Mr. Biederman. Approve. Mr. Lane.
No.
Dr. Murtada.
No.
Dr. Palacio.
Approved.
Dr. Payne.
No.
Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Dr. White.
Approved.
Okay, the resolution has been approved 4-3. So it carries. We'll move forward with Mr. CEO with the remainder of your report.
Thank you. The staff of the Indianapolis Public Library continues to focus on supporting lifelong learning in the city of Indianapolis. Our system-wide communication consists of, we continue to hold meetings with staff at branch locations as well as departments. In July, the executive committee held meetings at Lawrence Branch and Fort Bend. The executive committee helped staff shelve material. We also had our bi-monthly town hall meeting, which was on July 19th. The executive committee also attended training as a group celebrating inclusion, disability, awareness, and etiquette. And in deference of time, I'm gonna go ahead and go through this report here really quickly because we still have 2 more presentations and it's already 5 minutes after 9. If you can go ahead and go to the second page, please, that would be great. All right, thank you. Let me put my line. So the first item we have is just community contacts. And this is for Q2. We haven't had a statistical presentation in like about 12 months. So I wanted to just do a quick presentation regarding the statistics. This is just looking at our community contacts breakdown. You can see in April, just before the start of the SRP program, dropping off materials, we had about 71 of those. Next slide. The next slide talks about average unique wireless devices. Average per week, the unique wireless device stat is the average per week that patrons are connected to the Wi-Fi. That's the one on the left. The use and session hours, as you can see, the difference between 2021 and 2022 has been about a 15% change. And then from Q2 22 to Q2 23 has been about a plus 10% change. That's great. All right, next slide. Circulation statistics. Again, for electronic, if you look down in Q2 and then Q2 of 2023, there's been a plus 11% change in circulation. That's in electronic. In physical material, Q2 of 22 and then Q2 of 23, there's been about a plus 2% change in physical circulation. Looking at ebooks, again, from Q2 to Q3, from Q2 to Q2 of 22 to 23, there's about a plus 5% change. And then our biggest was the audio books. There's been about a plus 18% change there. And then ebooks, well, I'm sorry. I just want to get back to where I was. Okay, yeah, about a plus 18% change right there. So that's all. Our circulation is going up in both formats. Next slide. Circulation by format again, physical material. As you can see, the big difference. And if you look on the right-hand side, CDs is about 14%. And the decrease is due to the older technology with CDs and then the use of more ebooks as well. And then also audiobooks has been a shift towards the play away. So there's been about a 10% reduction in audiobooks, 14% in CDs. Next page. Community room usage. So you see the rental fees for the branches. You have Q1 2022, and you have Q1 2023. So there's been an increase in rental fees. And then if you look over at Central Library, Q1 2022 was very low. And if you go to Q1 2023, there was an increase in that as well. But the biggest increase you see would be Q2 2022 to Q2 2023. There was the 55,000 in Q2, and then the 70,000 in Q2 of 2023. And according to events, most of our bigger events happened in that quarter.
And the difference with COVID.
Yes. And then going over to the right-hand side, branches, meeting room usage. You see in Q2 and then Q2 of 2003, there had been an increase in educational use of our meeting rooms from 232 and Q2 of 2023 versus 147 and Q2 in 2022. And that's all I have for the brief update. Again, in October, I will give a quarterly statistical update and it will be more comprehensive. But I know one hadn't been done in quite a while, so I want to just give a brief update on where we stand on some of our statistics.
Thank you, Mr. Lim.
And then next, I would like to welcome Ms. Beth Van Allen, the manager editor, Encyclopedia of Indianapolis. She will be doing a short presentation on the Encyclopedia of Indianapolis.
Actually, I am going to fill in for Beth. I'm Jess Fisher. I am the associate editor for the Encyclopedia. We just wanted to take a few moments, and I'm going to make it real brief because we're getting real late here, to share with you all our newest addition to the Encyclopedia. In June, we launched our very first online exhibit. Let's see here. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So for our first exhibit, we wanted to do sort of an art gallery style exhibit. So we chatted with the folks at the Indie Arts Council and with our friends here at Digital Indie, and decided that we were going to do an exhibit version of the Murals for Racial Justice project from 2020. So when you go on to the exhibit, this is the first thing you'll see, and you'll get to go through several of the murals from that project. And then as you go through, I'm not going to read this because it's a lot, but I encourage you to read it all. This gives you background on the Murals for Racial Justice project, what it was, when it happened, who was all part of it, and the sort of outcome of it. So as you get through this, you'll get a background behind it, and then you can go through and actually go into a deep dive of the murals. You'll see that there's 11 murals here. Each of these tiles you can click on and then go in and learn more about the mural, and more importantly, the artist. Right now, Digital Indie has all these murals digitized, but there's no information about the artists, what they were thinking when they were creating these pieces. And so that's what we were trying to do here. As I said, there's 11 here. If you know anything about the project, there are 22 murals in the project. So one of the things we wanted to ensure is that we had full buy-in by the artists. So we reached out to each of them, and those that wanted to work with us are represented here. The beauty of this being a digital project is that if any of the other artists came to us later and said, hey, we like how this turned out, we want to be part of it, we can add them. So I'm just going to go through a couple of these so you can see what it looks like when you get that deep dive. So we'll start with Kayla Austin's work. James Baldwin Speaks, Audre Lorde Speaks. So the first thing you'll see is the Digital Indie archived version of the mural. And then as you go through, you'll get images of the mural in context. So you can see here where it was in the place. You can see there's more to it than what was archived. And then you get Kayla's statement behind why she did what she did. So in this case, Kayla says that she did this piece during Pride, and it was important to her to represent that community. And then as you go through, you'll see a picture of Kayla with her work, and you will get to read more about her and her life as an artist. Below that, you'll see all those same tiles that you saw on the initial page, and that will let you navigate to all the different murals. So I'll go through one more. This one is Israel Solomon's For George. Again, you've got the archived version at the top. You have the version of it in context. So you see, the barriers. This was COVID and everything. You've got the people, it's just a different view that you wouldn't have gotten elsewhere. And again, you get Israel's actual thoughts behind his piece. And then you'll see the artist with his mural and learn more about him. So that's just 2 of them. Obviously, there's 9 more. In the interest of time, I will encourage you all to go to the website and check all those out. The artists are incredible. The art is incredible. It's definitely worth your time. And then our next exhibit that isn't out yet, that's coming up at the end of this year, is about the Hoosier Group. So for this one, we tried to go with more of a history style exhibit. So something you might see if you were to go to like the Historical Society. So we'll just kind of run through this in the interest of time. But this is the general of what it's going to look like. You'll be able to go through all these tiles and read about the art scene of Indianapolis in the late 19th, early 20th century. You'll learn about the Hoosier Group. You'll learn about all the places in Indy where they worked and showed all of their art, the legacy that they left. So you'll learn a little bit about what eventually will become Heron. You'll learn some more about their students. We wanted to try to feature some more artists in there. So we'll have bios of individuals like William Edward Scott and Helene Hibbins, John Wesley Hardrick. All of those were students of the Hoosier Group. And then I'll just go through these real quick, just so you can get an idea of what this will look like. So you've got the artists, the page for the legacy of the Hoosier Group. And then finally, we have a whole gallery of work by the Hoosier Group artists that are specifically of Indianapolis. So that was the thing. Hoosier Group, they're well documented. You can learn about them everywhere, but we wanted to make sure that we're bringing this back to Indianapolis. So as you can see, like the last one, Meridian Street, like, well, maybe you can see it's a little hard with the lighting in here, but you know, it's very rural looking. And so it's kind of neat to see that and think about that compared to what Meridian Street looks like today. So that is my very, very brief exhibit pitch. We hope to be doing more of these in the future. We've got some more entities like the Medical History Museum's interested in working with us and a few other organizations throughout town. So we hope to continue doing this. But this is what we've got for now for you. And again, please go check out the Murals for Racial Justice Project, the exhibit. It's great. And that's where we go. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll have the Summer Reading Program 2023. Michelle Wiedenbach will give that presentation. And Michelle Sharp, Miss Michelle Sharp.
Hi.
Hello.
I feel like we all need to fight. You know, I get the teacher in me and I want to make you like, you know, wake your brain up a little bit. Okay. So I am Shale Weidenbach and I am the area resource manager for youth services. So basically I am the umbrella over children's programming for the library. And
I'm Michelle Sharp and I'm the area resource manager for adult services. So I am the umbrella over the adult programming.
We're a team. Okay, so I don't know how to make this shorter and I don't know how to change this. How do you do that? I'm trying. Okay, so thank you for having us here. We are here really to share the outcomes of the 2023 summer reading program. And this summer, believe it or not, was the 104th summer reading program and included both children 0 to 18 and adults. The children's summer reading program encourages kids to read all summer long when they don't have the structure of school to keep them reading. I like to compare reading to riding a bike. I know I've said this to some of you before, but if you think about riding a bike and if you rode a bike every day, you would build up strength and stamina and you'd be able to go further and further over time. So children read at school every day, building fluency and comprehension, but without the structure of school, many children lose the drive to continue reading during the summer months, hence the summer reading program. Research shows that just 20 minutes a day can have a great impact on student success. And if you look at this graphic, I really like this because it really shows like how many words possibly you could be exposed to and the impact that it could have on standardized tests. The summer reading program focuses on keeping up the reading routine, and we track time spent reading. And children earn incentives at 1 hour, 5 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours, and 20 hours, completing the program at 20 hours. In addition to reading, we offered 14 workshops at our branches with something to inspire all ages. We had arts program, including a woodworking program. We had STEM robotics, digital drawing program. We had quite a number of health programs, including cooking, with the Marion County Health Department, yoga, and ultimate ninjas for the teens. We also had many performances. We had a teddy bear concert as part of our family concert series. We had family sing-alongs and lots of animal shows, which were really our most popular programs. Staff also worked really hard to develop in-branch programs, and I can't say enough about the staff and their commitment and how hard it is, because the summer is just this huge influx of children and families, and they work really hard to keep them engaged. So, how many kids read this summer? The purple on this chart shows the participants, meaning that they went onto the app and logged at least 1 minute of reading. And the green shows the people who registered but did not log. And originally with the summer reading program, the real push was to get people to register. You know, we would go out and get as many people to register. But now that we've got this digital Beanstack app, we can actually measure how many minutes they're reading. We have data. And you can just see that the percentage of people that are participating is really growing. We had an 8.4% overall growth, which is huge. We bought prizes for 3% growth. So that was an interesting, made for an interesting summer. And a big part of what's happening is our amazing outreach department led by Maggie Ward. We have partnered with Indianapolis Public Schools with all their summer school programs. We've partnered with Lawrence Township, tons of small child cares and church camps where outreach will go out and bring books and sign all their kids up for the program. So that really has increased our participation. This shows how many minutes we actually read. So we had a goal of reading 16 million minutes for the kids for both. And we far exceeded that just with the kids. Michelle will add in what the adults read as well. And we saw an 8.4% increase from 2022 in the amount reading. We set a community goal of 16 million. And if the kids if we made it to 16 million, it unlocked grand prizes that the kids could win, which included, I mean, they were really good prizes, like giant Lego sets and all kinds of things that are high quality, like educational toys and games. And we also, we partnered with Bright Lane Learning, which is formerly called School on Wheels. And they serve the unhoused children in Indianapolis with tutoring and other educational support. Patrons donated books, and we were able to give them over 2,000 books to be given to the children in their program. We had over 5,000 kids finish the program, which is a huge number. That's almost 50% of the kids that participated finished the program, which is a huge number. And at our programs, over 10,000 people attended. So we get lots of feedback from the parents, but what do the kids say? I wanted to include some of these because we get to see them, but we don't get to share them very often. So we designed these book review sticky notes or little Post-it notes. So after kids read a book, they could review it and stick it on the book for the next person to recommend it. This one says, lots of death, not kissing, and he gave it 5 stars, which I thought was great. And then this postcard, you can't really see, but it was a really detailed dragon. And she wrote, "My favorite book I've read this summer is Mice Take the Stage. It is a Thea Sisters book about working together and friendship. The Thea Sisters work together to become a band called the Spice Mice. In the end, they become the opening band for a concert." And I just thought, like, what a great summary, right? If I was her teacher, it'd be like A+. So that's the summer reading program for kids. But we also had one for bronies.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I want to thank everyone throughout the system who contributed to the program's success. This year, we made several notable changes to the adult program. Our program had two main goals this year: reading and bringing patrons back into our branches to rediscover programs and services that we offer. Most significant was our decision to have adult patrons log their minutes to read, just like the juvenile program does. Now everyone, regardless of age, logs their reading in the Beanstack app using one common process. To rally the community around spending their time reading, we set a community reading goal of 16 million minutes this year. The adults contributed more than a third of this goal by reading 5.69 million minutes. So we saw a nice spread of activity throughout the system. The charts shown display the final registration and participation numbers and show a comparison between 2022 and 2023. We experienced significant increases in both areas. We saw a 60% increase in registration and 143% increase in participation. It is worth noting that in 2022, patrons kept track of activities. In 2023, they logged minutes read. So in PDA, we were able to offer several programs this summer to engage our adult patrons during the adult summer reading program. Many classes ended up with wait lists due to the demand. And so those are our adult summer reading program offerings. So you can see we had a nice variety where patrons could go fish. They had painting parties, writing workshops. They did printmaking, foraging walks, and held a community shred and electronics recycling event. Another significant change to the program was our prize incentives. This year, we chose higher quality prizes and worked with local businesses and partners to provide them themed prize bundles that reflect popular hobbies like coffee, gardening, self-care, local exploration, and of course, reading. 28 lucky patrons won a prize bundle in our prize drawings. All prizes have been claimed now. Those are a few of our winners there. At the end of the summer, we're most excited to see the overall participation increase, which rose by 143%. Other highlights we're proud of are the prize bundles available to patrons, which featured a number of local businesses, including Bottleworks Hotel, Hawville Honey, and Helm Coffee near Garfield Park. We had 1,554 patrons complete activities like visit a C library, listen to an episode of our new podcast, More Than a Place, attend a CBLC program, and more. All activities focused on bringing patrons into the branches or experiencing a service that we provide. A benefit to using Beanstack is that patrons can respond to the activities they do. Their responses have shown a high level of engagement with the program and activities offered. More information about the Adult Summer Reading Program is available in the board packet. So we wanted to give another special thank you to all the people that went above and beyond to make this year's summer reading program a success, both behind the scenes and on the front lines. We couldn't have done any of this without you. And a special thank you to the Indy Public Library Foundation for supporting programs such as these and many others through generous gifts and donations from sponsors.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Just a quick one. You talked about Beanstack. So you already do community engagement and you named Maggie Ward and the outreach and the kinds of things that you're gathering data about what the community wants already. Am I correct in that?
So Beanstack is an app that you can put on your device to track the number of minutes that you're reading. So it is an engagement device for the patrons to keep track. And then I'm not sure like in terms of engagement, we try to do, I would say the biggest engagement thing we do is our staff. Because our staff, when the people come in to sign up for the program, they're the reason why the people keep coming back. You know what I mean? They're the ones that
Absolutely.
engage them and get them excited. And they actually, this summer, we have other programs, 100 books before graduation and 1,000 books before kindergarten. And our numbers in those went up. Like we had over 1,000 people register for 1,000 books before kindergarten this summer because staff introduced them to the idea. So.
And you're already collecting information from businesses and nonprofits and the different branches already.
It's a
That
lot.
community engagement you're already doing.
Yes, and we also put out a survey. So, and we're just now compiling all the information that we gathered from that. And that's a lot more subjective and holistic and really trying to get like, what did you like? What didn't you like?
What a great way to get the community data that we really need in order to developing the program. Commend you highly on doing that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
We gave you a whole bunch of goodies too, just so you could see what the program looked like, as well as that's our fall program guide. So you could get an idea of what we're going to be doing this fall for children.
One question, I'm sorry. I was looking at the demographics here about the participants. And my question is, how are we advertising the summer reading programs and what avenues are we considering, up in those numbers, especially for Black and Hispanic readers?
I'm glad you pulled that out. So I put that in there on purpose because I hope somebody would. So yes, and that was the thing that struck the most, right? Is like compared to the percentage of kids in the city, we're way below that. We produce a short commercial that we send to all the schools to promote it. Branches go out. I work very closely with several people at IPS in different divisions to try to get the information out there. Our communications department also puts out like a media kit to every different school system to try to get the information out there. Kids are not an easy market to reach. So we also advertise on WFYI. So during their children's programming, so we do spend some money on advertising that way. But I don't know, and we partner with organizations, which to me is the best way, but I don't know how to get that number up. And that's something I'm hoping the communications department will help us with for next year, is to target the Black and brown kids and figure out why that percentage is so much lower.
Thank you.
I'll be happy to help you.
Oh, yes. You're on. Get ready.
Thank you for tracking that information. It also gives something to look forward to in terms of next year at this time.
Yeah.
And,
See if there's a change.
yeah. And I had just briefly, I had an opportunity with some of my colleagues to work with Shay and some of the other staff as part of the summer reading program cleanup. We did a community service project last week. So it was really great to see some of that work and to help with the cleanup.
Yeah. Anybody else who wants to come in? We've got lots and lots of totes full of books
Yeah.
and toys that need to be counted.
And we did the seed packets, which
Oh,
was the
yes.
most really interesting thing to me, actually putting seeds in packets, and the idea that every card holder can check out 25 packets of seed every year. You could build a whole garden with that.
Yeah.
So kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the last item is resolution extending the strategic plan, resolution 60-2023. Whereas the Board of Trustees adopted the library 2021-2023 strategic plan in February of 21 and directed administration and staff to proceed with implementation of the plan. Staff started off implementing the plan. We were wanting to wait till we had an appointment of a permanent CEO and the hire of the strategic planning and assessment officer, which we did complete last Thursday. We have completed a large portion of the strategic plan. Some of the things were covered by Anita in her presentation that she gave in June, which included increased vendor diversity at least 27%. That was up. Staff recruitment diversity spending at least 50%. That was up as well. Deliver at least 600 technology and computer sessions. That was up. And then we also completed the digital inclusion roadmap. So with that, I recommend the term of the strategic plan be extended 1 year through 2024.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Hill? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Peterman. Approve. Mr. Lane. Approve. Dr. Murtada.
Approved.
Dr. Palacio.
Approve.
Dr. Payne.
Approved.
Ms. Tribble.
Approved.
Dr. White.
Approve.
Okay, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Hill, does that conclude your report?
Yes, ma'am, that concludes.
Thank you.
Thank
Item 11, no unfinished business. There is no new business, discussion and agenda building. This is a time available for discussion items not on the agenda that are of interest to library board members, and the opportunity is given to suggest items to be included on future library board meeting agenda. Are there suggestions from any board member for the September 2023 board meeting?
Yes, I'd like to hear more about the community engagement initiatives that the library already has undertaken and how they are being done the way that was just described, but also the other initiatives for community engagement. I'd like to hear a lot more about that.
Okay, thank you. Any other future agenda item suggestions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Items 14, 15, and 16 are just notices and material. Our next regular meeting will be Monday, September 25th at the College Branch Library at 4180 North College Avenue at 6:30 p.m. Is there any other business to be discussed? Hearing none, I'll receive a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
A second? Second. The motion's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.